Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Horsemen podcast, and no, you are not dreaming, we have quite a crew of people in for this time. You could call this the Horsemen podcast Shadow Cult crossover show, because we got a lot of people in here. So first and foremost, yours truly, Levi. Right above me, dead center above me, is Ricky.
Yellow.
Next to him on his left, well, I'm looking on his left, is Artur. Now to the right of me is lovely Hannah from the Germany.
Hello.
But also two special guests, my two co-owner comrade friends from the Shadow Cult. First, KamikazeGames. What's up, Dylan?
It's gonna be a good day.
Oh no, Tails is taking your body over.
Yep.
And then to my left, second time we've had this guy on the show, MrScottReacts. What's up, Scott?
What's going on, sir? Thanks for having me on once again. Cool to be.
Yeah, so as a reminder, first time we've had Scott on the show, it was a one-on-one episode, me and him, where we did top 10 Roadrunner Records albums. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, the third time we've had Dylan on the show. Mm-hmm. So he's basically the legendary guest on the show, essentially. Because he's been on here the most out of any other guest that we have had. But regardless, so yes, as you guys saw in the title of this episode, top 10 albums of the 2000s. Wowie! So...
Yowie, wow!
Oh, God.
So, I figured a good place to start would be to talk about where metal was in the 2000s throughout, from the beginning of the decade to the end. Well, at the beginning of the decade, it was primarily dominated by nu metal and the early beginnings of the mainstream metalcore scene, as far as the mainstream metal goes. But in the underground, there was so much going on. There was the melodic death metal scene that was really starting to skyrocket during the early 2000s. You had traditional death metal kind of go through a bit of a revival, so to speak, with many bands putting out some quality stuff in the early 2000s. A couple of them might appear on my list. Progressive metal starting to get a lot more crazy and complex, with so many bands experimenting with other metal styles or trying to bring the traditional style of progressive metal back to the forefront. Then you get to the mid-2000s, where the thrash revival happened, with so many bands coming up, such as Evil, Warbringer, Havoc, Toxic Holocaust, and to some extent you could attribute this a little bit to bands like Trivium and Lamb of God for having that element in their music coming up.
Municipal Waste, too.
Yeah, Municipal Waste. And then, also during that second half of the 2000s, you would see old thrash bands either return or go back to their roots a little bit, like Testament returned after a 9-year gap between albums. Metallica going back to the thrash roots a little bit. Even throughout the decade, Megadeth was gradually getting back to their sound again. Slayer, same thing after God Hates Us All in 2001, where they had a little bit of nu metal to their sound. Went back to the old school sound by the second half of the decade. And then also other subgenres started to really explode during the decade. Folk metal probably being the big one, as there was so much of that going on in the 2000s.
Can I just add that also it was the decade where symphonic metal was also starting to break out. I mean, Nightwish, Epica, Within Temptation, Tristania as well. All the big symphonic metal bands were also coming out with some of their best albums in this era.
Mm-hmm.
So needless to say, the 2000s was a very interesting decade. Started off with nu metal and metalcore really the mainstream darlings. Then again, metalcore was basically the mainstream genre the whole decade. Some bands were good, others, not so much. But you get that with every style of music that's out there. But as far as the underground, it was pretty strong, and it just got stronger when the 2010s came around, and we did an episode on that just a few months ago. But now we're here to talk the albums, and there were a lot of great albums in the 2000s. A lot of them I probably forgot about, that others in here will probably mention. But I figured a good place to begin is with our honorable mentions before we get into our actual lists. So I will start off. I have 10 honorable mentions. Or actually, I'm going to add on 11 and 12 because I had these two albums and I completely forgot about them. First, Immortal Sons of Northern Darkness. I talked about this before with the Norwegian black metal episode we did recently, that this is my favorite Immortal album because of the more death metal percussion and riff style, and I just love Abath. And then the next one I added at the last second, even though I probably could put this in the top 10, but since I already have my list set, I got Gojira From Mars to Sirius. Probably their best album, in my opinion. I mean, when you got songs like Heaviest Matter of the Universe, Flying Whales, Ocean Planet, top to bottom, it's just a masterpiece. Devin Townsend's Ziltoid the Omniscient. Probably the funniest album of the decade, because Devin, just a crazy guy, but a hell of a musical genius. I mean, when you're starting off the album with a song that features like a Wilhelm scream, you're in for a special comedic prog metal ride. So, Devin, kudos. Next up, I have the actual album, Evil Infected Nations. The last album with original bass player Mike Alexander before he passed away. And this album, top to bottom, a thrasher piece. Even though there's a lot of mid-pace stuff on it, it was well done. And from this album, I can tell why this band gets often compared to Metallica and Slayer. Especially Metallica in the vocal department. Creator, Enemy of God. I could have went with Violent Revolution as well, but I thought Enemy of God was their best one of the 2000s. Primordial to the Nameless Dead. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Have I already committed murder? Oh, I'll wait to hear.
Yes, you fucking have!
Again?
Oh, it says number 1! No! Oh, shit. And Hannah's number 2. And Ricky's number 2. Wow. Meanwhile, Scott and Dylan are clueless. But it's a great album. Probably my favorite folk metal album of the decade. Next up, I got Megadeth Endgame. Probably Megadeth's heaviest album. In my mind, it was so cool. Andy Sneap on the production helm. Anything Andy Sneap's involved with, to me, is great, because he just does a great job at the production. But, I mean, when you got songs like This Day We Fight, Head Crusher, the title track, I mean, this was, in my opinion, better than Death Magnetic by Metallica, even though I do like that album a little bit. But yeah, this, I'd say out of the bands in the Big Four that released albums throughout the 2000s, this, in my mind, was the best of them all. So, there's that for you. Dream Theater Octavarium. I mean, Dream Theater is Dream Theater, what can you say in this album? When you have a song like Panic Attack, where it's so unrelenting, and even the title track being a 25-minute masterpiece, no doubt.
And Root of All Evil. I love that song.
I got Machine Head, The Blackening. Hey, remember when Machine Head was actually good?
Oh, the good old times.
Yeah. And that's all I gotta say about that.
I remember better than any of you, for God's sake.
Better than That awful catharsis.
I
Didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Not to mention catharsis here. This is good albums, not bad albums.
if we want to do top 10 worst albums in metal history, we'll do that episode and just shit on so much. Ugh. I literally almost threw up hearing Catharsis. Okay, anyways, and then I got Amon Amarth with Odin at Our Side. I mean, I think 2000s era Amon Amarth was untouchable. You could have put any of their albums from the 2000s, from, I believe, The Avenger, all the way to Twilight of the Thunder God.
Although Twilight of the Thunder God still remains the most sold album by Metal Blade still to this day.
Yeah, that's true. And then my last honorable mention, this one came very, very close to making the actual list. Immolation, Close to a World Below. Probably, in my opinion, the most evil death metal album I have ever heard. More evil than Morbid Angel, more evil than Deicide, more evil than Vital Remains. This was the album that just took death metal to its most evil. And especially the album cover is probably the most evil album cover I've ever seen, where Jesus burning in hell on the cross.
Speaking of another shit album from the 2000s, speaking of another shit album of the 2000s, Illud Divinum, whatever.
That was 2011. Yeah, that was 2011.
It was 2009.
Nope.
My bad.
It's alright. But yeah, Immolation, Close to a World Below. When you have songs like Father, You're Not a Father, Put My Hand in the Fire, and the title track, you're in for an apocalyptic thrill ride with this album. So anybody that likes evil death metal, this is the perfect album for you. And it's not even a satanic album, it's just more of an atheist kind of idea. But the album cover, like I said, with Jesus burning on the cross, wow. Talk about powerful visual. Those are my honorable mentions. Now we can get to everyone else's. Ricky, what do you got?
I have 7 honorable mentions. Now, if you would have told me to do this list 10 years ago, 6 out of my 7 honorable mentions would have been the top 10. That's how much my musical taste has grown in the past 15 to 10 years. So, I have Evanescence The Fallen, more of a gothic rock, gothic metal album that was highly, highly big at the time in the 03, especially got a song in two songs actually in Daredevil, the movie Daredevil with Ben Affleck, a young Ben Affleck. I got Disturbed, The Sickness. I mean, new metal darlings at the time, Down with the Sickness, their best hit ever. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And then we got another new metal act, like System of a Down, Toxicity.
Ah, honorable mention. I forgot about.
I mean, who in the hell didn't listen to that during the 2000s?
Yeah.
I was literally like, I think I was like maybe 9, maybe 10 years old when I listened to Toxicity for the first time. Next up, Deftones, White Pony. Again, one of those new metal alternative albums that got me by surprise back in the 2000s. It's something out there.
Definitely experimental for sure.
Next up, and I think, Levi, you might have this one on your list, Leviathan by Mastodon.
Nope. It would have been on if I didn't have a certain other Mastodon album on the list, it might have made it. But I got a different Mastodon album on the list.
I've talked about Leviathan a whole bunch. And last but not least, I have a duality. Both Norland 1 and 2 by Bastard.
Ooh.
If you talk about how to end a career, even though it was supposed to be a 4-parter, this is the perfect way to end it. Unfortunately, Corson passed away before he was gonna make part 3, part 4. So he left us with this perfect duality of a masterpiece. Hail Corson.
Hannah,
Well, I also have the Northland albums on my honorable mention list. I, like Ricky said, it was the perfect way to end the whole Bathory era. And I mean, it's a great return back to the Viking metal. Yeah, I mean, it's on the same level as albums like Blood on Ice and Hammer Heart and so on. It's just awesome, two awesome albums. And then I've also got Windir's 1184 on my honorable mention list. Much like Bathory, Valfa sadly passed, although they released another album after 1184. But 1184, in my opinion, is the best Windir album, and for me, it's simply divine. And I think two great music geniuses sadly passed, both with Quorthon and Valfar.
And in the same year, too.
Yes, and it's a shame that we will never hear music from them again. Then, I mean, I'm not the biggest new metal hardcore fan, but I cannot deny the influence and the importance of Converge's Jane Doe. In my opinion, it's an awesome album. I saw them live at Wacken when they played a lot of songs from that album, and I mean, I don't listen to new metal or hardcore very often, but I think this album is very listenable and for sure very important. Next one, Orphan Land Mabur.
Wow.
Forgot about Mabur.
Honorable mention?
Honorable mention.
Another great folk metal album, and the only one Orphan Land released in the 2000s. But what an album. What an amazing story. The music on this album is awesome, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best folk metal albums released in the 2000s, along with Iluvatis Slania and Primordial, but I will talk about Primordial later on. And then next one, Iron Maiden, Brave New World.
It's on my list. It's on my list.
I was sure that it would be on a lot of you guys. I mean, it marked the return of Bruce Dickinson and a return back to form. In my opinion, it's still the best album Maiden has released in the 2000s and 2010s combined. It's, in my opinion, the best album Maiden have released in a very long time, and there are a lot of awesome songs on here, and it's very listenable. I like it a lot. Probably in my top 10, top 5 Iron Maiden albums. Then next one, Gojira, From Mars to Sirius. Levi already talked about it. It's an awesome album. That a lot of awesome and heavy songs are on there, like Flying Whales. I love that fucking song, especially when they play it live. Then the next one, Ahab, The Call of the Wretched Sea. Great funeral doom metal album about Moby Dick. I mean, I've talked about it on the last episodes. I love Ahab. I love this album. And that's why it's here. And then the next one, The Ruins of Beverest. I've talked about them as well. Rain Upon the Impure. Very important German black metal album. It's fucking awesome. One of the last, I think the last album before they shifted more towards a doomy approach. The production is not very good, but the music is awesome. If you can stand shitty productions, like on a lot of first and second wave black metal bands, this is an album for you. And then the last band I want to talk about is Enslaved. I think Enslaved have, much like in the 2010s, Enslaved have released awesome albums, and that's why it's so hard for me to narrow one down. In my opinion, they're one of the most consistent bands ever, and in the 2000s, I mean, Mudrown is awesome. Monumention, one of my personal favorites out of the decade. Then Below the Lights, which of course is a classic. Isa, Rune, and Vertebrae. I mean, 6 awesome albums in one decade. Who can top that? I doubt anybody will be able to top that, and that's why I had to mention them. Enslave is awesome. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. You won't be disappointed.
Levi looks like he's ready to
I have
pass out.
awoken from a long slumber. I just wanted to do that for the hell of it. Alright, Scott.
Okay. Just a little flub up. When Levi asked me to come on here, best album, my favorite albums of the 2000s, I don't really have the most diverse listening experience with albums from the 2000s, honestly. So a lot of my stuff is kind of falling back on bands that I've just listened to ever and ever, longer than anyone on this podcast. And but I really look at this as an educational opportunity for me to find out about albums I did not listen to or did not even know about. And already, just from the honorable mentions here, I'm getting a bunch of ideas like, shit, I got to check that one, I got to check that one, I got to check that one. With that, I'm stoked about that. So just a quick handful of honorable mentions. Levi already mentioned The Blackening from Machine Head. Again, good album, not my favorite, a little too progressive in a couple of the songs. Old school Machine Head when they started, that's what I'm about. Burn My Eyes is one of my all-time favorite albums. I think it's one of the best metal albums ever. Also, the duplicate story from Camelot, Epica, and the Black Halo. Just amazing story, amazing songs. Just the whole. I'm really into like the performance aspect of music, not just the sound of it. And so, getting to like see this performed live or something like that, it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful show. It's an experience. So,
not to mention
those on there.
Yeah, not to mention March of Mephisto, probably my favorite Camelot song. It features Shagra from Dimmu Borgir.
Yes. Yep. And my favorite is The Haunting because it features the sultry, sexy siren herself, Simone Simmons. I love alliteration. And so, it had to have that on there too. And plus, I didn't want to overload my honorable mention albums from bands that are already on my top 10 too. I just thought that was kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So, but wanted to throw this on here because I do love the album. 2009's Immortals All Shall Fall. Do enjoy that album. Arctic Swarm is a favorite on that one. And like you said, Abbat, he's freaking cool as shit. I love Abbat. I think he's awesome.
Fucking hilarious, too.
Oh, yeah.
With this guitar.
Oh, Abbat. That's all I can say.
Or a bath, or a shower.
A shower. You saw the interview, too. And, I think the only other thing I had on my list, I put this album on here from this band because another album they did is high up on my top 10, and that is Cannibal Corpse Kill. It's just a notch. I knew he was going to do that. But
Honorable mention, I forgot about Kill.
How could you forget about Kill?
Because I have one other album from Cannibal on my list. I think that's
He's going to forget another one that I have on my list.
A little notch higher than that one, but because this was the first outing with Eric Rutan and Man recording in Florida, and the next one is on my top 10. So that's my honorable mentions for you.
Artur.
Yes, we can't see him.
Oh no, not again.
Can't see him.
God damn.
Tuned in Portugal, are you there? Come in Portugal.
Technical difficulties. This show would be nothing without him.
There we go.
There it is.
I'm here.
He's back from the Firefly Funhouse.
I kind of had 9, but because of Ziltoid, and still to this day, I love that Ziltoid album, I'm making a 10. But the other 9 that I have, I may shit on Tool a lot of times, but I can respect them as musicians. So I have Lutralis as my first honorable mention.
That's on my list.
On my list as well.
Levi, man.
I also have Toxicity as well by System of a Down, of course. Oh boy, this one, I can give them their due credibility, but I still hate this band like hell. I have to put Linkin Park. I have to put Hybrid Theory. I mean, it was very influential, that album. As much as Linkin Park is what it was, which was shit after Meteora, Hybrid Theory was still a very good album. The next are going to be a bit out of my personal preference, and I have a Dimmu Borgir album here. Puritanical Eutropic Misanthropia. I mean, Puritania, that whole marching type song, it's beautiful. Levi, if you don't have this album, these two albums, you're going to be in so much trouble. Cynics Traced in Air. I'm not the biggest Cynic fan in the world, but I do like Traced in Air. And the other one, which I'm surprised you haven't mentioned, Annihilation of the Wicked by Nile.
There is a Nile album on my list.
I'm sure it's going to be the album that has Sarcophagus on it. I'm sure of it, but no matter. Evanescence. I mean, I have to give Evanescence their due. I mean, Fallen was everywhere. This one is really out of my personal preference, and I'm surprised that not that many people knew about it. What do you get when you combine Hansi Kirsch from Blind Guardian and John Schaffer from Ice Demons and Wizards?
Demons and Wizards. Oh,
the self-titled debut of Demons and Wizards. It is power metal. It is a combination of. Tell me you don't get emotional once you hear a song like Fiddle in the Green. It's a beautiful song, and I recommend it to you. Last but not least, Iowa by Slipknot. I mean, it was the first Slipknot album that I've listened to. Wait and Bleed, My Plague. It was everywhere. Vermilion was in Subliminal Verses, but that whole album was everywhere. And in a way, it's how I got into Slipknot. And the 10 is... And I did forget a lot.
Yeah, and last but not least, Dylan.
Alright, are y'all ready for my normie-ass list?
Go for it.
Your honorable mentions.
Yeah, honorable mentions.
No hate here, man. Say what you want.
Alright, we'll see about that. Okay, so my first honorable mention is going to be the Somatic Defilement by Whitechapel. I love how raw it is. It's a great grindcore, deathcore, great start for their band. I do think This Is Exile is probably just going to edge it, but I do like the Somatic Defilement just for the significance of it. I have probably no one's going to have heard of this one, but I'm going with another mention is The Scene Is Dead by This Is Menace. And the band This Is Menace was formed out of the remains of Pitch Shifter, their bassist Mark Clayton. And it's basically, if you think back to like Desensitized or even Submit from Pitch Shifter, it's kind of like a natural progression from there. It's very heavy, very raw. I really like it. I also have a mention of Judas Priest, Angel of Retribution. I know that a lot of people were disappointed by that album, but I think it's very solid. Especially for how old the group was at this point, and like the fact, like even they're still around, like Firepower. Like I would put that in the top 5 of my favorite Judas Priest albums.
Hell yeah!
And I'd even put Angel in the top 10. Mastodon, Leviathan, obviously. Gotta mention Rob Zombie with The Sinister Urge. Gotta love yourself some Rob Zombie every once in a while. It wouldn't be me on the Horsemen podcast if I didn't mention Mayhem, so gotta put Grand Declaration of War down.
Ooh! You're going the avant-garde route.
Gojira from Mars to Sirius. And I've also got, surprised no one's mentioned Meshuggah yet. I put Nothing in my honorable mentions.
Well, there you
and
go.
my last honorable mention is going to be Chimera, Pass Out of Existence.
Well, there you have it. Everybody's got their honorable mentions out there. Now, 30 minutes into the show, now on to the top 10. So, I shall begin with my number 10, which is my first of 2 ties. First, Artur, you already spoiled it for me. It's Lateralis by Tool. I mean, you can't deny, as much shit as Tool gets for their attitude and their time it takes to put out albums, at least they work hard to craft it and make sure it's good. And this, Lateralis, to me, is their masterpiece. I mean, when you have songs like The Patient, Schism, Parabola, the title track, Ticks and Leeches, I mean, you got a hell of a prog alternative metal album on your hands with this. Not to mention that bass. Can't go wrong with that bass tone.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second album at number 10. For me, it wouldn't. This list would be incomplete without mentioning one of my faves, Edge of Sanity, Crimson 2, the sequel to the classic Crimson 1 from '96. Again, Dan Swano is a musical god. Holy hell, he's like, as I keep saying, he's like the Dave Grohl of extreme metal and progressive music in the sense that he can play any instrument, sing any vocal style, and he's amazing at it. I've talked about this album way too much in the past, so just briefly, 43-minute one-song album that's separated into 9 parts. Dan Swano doing the guitars, the bass, the drums, the clean vocals, and the keyboards, while they had the singer of the band Rib Spreader do the growls, because Dan was not doing growls at the time. And this was their last album before the project ended once again, and I wish this band would come back together to do shows and play both Crimson and Crimson 2 in its entirety, because that would be quite the undertaking, to say the very least, to hear nearly 90 minutes of progressive death metal mastery. So, that's my number 10. Dylan.
Oh, back to me already, okay. So, I'm excited to see the reactions of everyone when I say this, but my number 10 is going to be LD50 by Mudvayne.
Oh.
What?
Now, bear with me on this one.
I haven't
I am
heard
a-
Mudvayne in years.
I haven't listened to them in a while
Me
myself.
neither. It's been years since I've heard.
The reason I put it on the list, I probably should have put an honorable mention, to be honest, but I think like this is the pinnacle of new metal. Probably this album. I wouldn't really even care to mention the rest of their discography, but as like new metal, as like a deathcore kind of just an amalgamation. It's the rawness, it's the loudness. Dig is such a meme at this point, but like you gotta admit, it goes hard.
Especially that bass.
Yes, the bass. The bass is legendary.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah.
Well, my number 10 is dedicated to two gateway bands that I was listening to a lot when I was getting into metal. First one is Amon Amarth, Twilight of the Thunder God. In my opinion, still the best album Amon Amarth have released. I mean, it's every song on this album is fucking awesome. After that, the quality of the music declined, at least for me. I mean, with Odin on Our Side, the album before that is awesome as well, but in my opinion, nothing has ever come close to Twilight of the Thunder God, especially the concept talking about Norse mythology, Ragnarok, and so on. My favorite songs out of this album probably has to be Tattered Banners and Bloody Flags, although I love The Hero and Live for the Kill and Free Will Sacrifice. Still to this day, although it's been like 12 years since I discovered this thing, I think it's awesome. And the same goes for the second album on my number 10, and that's Sabaton, The Art of War. In my opinion, again, the musical pinnacle of this band, much like with Amon Amarth, I think The Art of War is the best thing Sabaton has released in ages. I mean, it's kind of centered around Sun Tzu's The Art of War, but also touches upon various battles of World War One and World War Two, and there are so many awesome songs on this album. They still play live, like The Cliffs of Gallipoli, The Price of a Mile, and The Art of War, Ghost Division. I mean, the same as with Amon Amarth is still awesome. A lot of the bands I discovered during that time, I'm not listening to them anymore, like Corby Klani, Dimmu Borgir, and Ilovaitie. Somehow they've gotten stale for me, but these two albums are still within my frequent playlist, and I still think they're awesome and they have aged well, and that's why they're on my number 10.
Artur?
This is a bit of a personal choice to me, but mine, I kind of spoiled it. But it is the first album that I ever bought with my own cash. Nightwish Once.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Going Nightwish, hey.
Nightwish 2004. I mean, as I said, in the 2000s it would to you could say that, and we're a part of that, but I have to say I've always loved Nightwish, especially this, to me, may be one of their pinnacles. And I still remember to this day how I bought this album. It was around 20 euros, which would be what, $17 more or less.
No, 25.
Well, at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time. I mean at the time. But I mean, I've always enjoyed that symphonic aspect, and probably this is the best album that the original Nightwish lineup ever recorded, with the amazing banshee of a vocalist named Tarja Turunen. Dark Chest of Wonders, I Wish I Had an Angel, Nemo, The Siren, Ghost Love Score. These are songs that are still played even with Floriansen still to this day. And this to me is more of a personal choice, but I've always loved this album, and I've always loved Nightwish, especially this era. Although with Floor, they have been doing very indeed. So,
Scott?
My number 10, Iced Earth's Horror Show.
Oh no! I forgot about Ice. Oh no! I forgot about.
I did want to put either that or Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh no!
I had a feeling I was going to get that
How could I
reaction
forget?
from somebody on the list here. Yeah, let's
I
take two things I
forgot.
love and put them together with horror and metal. I mean, this album is fantastic. The songs are also very diverse, I find, dynamically, because there's a lot of good growth in these songs musically. They could start out slow and melodic and acoustic, build to that harder power metal sound to it. It doesn't wear on your ears while listening to the entire album. And you can get lost almost in the imagery too of the album. That's another thing for me too, is that cover art is a big factor. Is back in the old days when I was, when you actually went to a music store, you were encapsulated by the cover art of an album. You're looking at this thing like, what the hell is this? I have to, and that's a big part too. So when it comes to albums for me, so the cover art, the songs, some of my favorites, Wolf, Jack, I'm Hotep has that cool, like, subtle Egyptian vibe to it, of course, in the music. The Iron Maiden cover, Transylvania, the instrumental song in the album. Just John Schaefer kicks ass, man. What can you say when it comes to this band? Steve DiGiorgio's on there too.
Is it also that has Dracula on it?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Dracula, Frankenstein.
that alone, that song alone.
Yep. All those tracks, man. Just great album top to bottom. So, yeah, had to put it number 10.
How could I forget Dracula? How could I forget Horror Show? Oh man,
That's okay.
I'm gonna kick myself in the ass later.
You're showing respect for it. That's okay.
All right, Ricky, you're number 10.
Well, my number 10 was spoiled by Artur. It's Iowa by Slipknot. If you want to talk about new metal at the time, like I think Dylan said Mudvayne was the pinnacle, I would go in toe-to-toe with Slipknot's Iowa, since it was the heaviest album at the time that they ever did before they transitioned to more of a softer, cleaner vocals in Volume 3. In this one, they had the more metalcore, kind of like guttural vocals at the time. I mean, it's a song that people could shit alone.
Yeah.
So heavy, like, holy shit, it makes you want to punch someone in the face.
Not to mention blast beats, which for most was only exclusive to death metal, black metal, and grindcore. Well, Slipknot said, "Hey, fuck it, we love all those styles. Let's put it in our music." And then, boom,
we can do everything.
Yeah, because the debut album was pure new metal. Volume 3 was more progress, more mainstream, but Iowa in the middle was the heaviest shit they've ever done. I think up to now you can probably say
We Are Not Your Kind might be their...
We're Not Your Kind, or maybe Point Father Great Chapter, a close third, but Iowa their heaviest.
But you hear this on how Slipknot made them, it will make you be thankful as ever. See some of the doc that they have on Iowa, and as I said, it's some heavy shit.
Well, now on to number 9. Ricky, let's begin with you.
My number 9 is the first
9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9. I forgot to do that.
9. My number 99999 is the first of two ties that I have on my list. This is kind of more of a personal taste because they become one of my recent favorite bands. I have both Razorblade Romance and Love Metal by him. You guys know me. I love him to the hell of it. Even got excited when Levi released that EP a couple of weeks ago. Got me really excited. But like I said, I discovered him 3 years ago. And Razorblade Romance was one of those albums that gave him one of their biggest hits. Join Me in Death, also Gone with the Sin, One Last Time, Right Here in Your Arms. And then Love Metal came by in 04. In 04, gave more of a mainstream gothic view to the band because you had songs like The Path, the title track, no, not the title track. Yeah, the title track, Love Metal. You had, I'm trying to remember the other one. Buried Alive by Love, again, one of those. And all of those music videos were directed by, can't believe I'm forgetting his fucking name. By, oh man, I know I'm gonna, oh shit, I'm forgetting his name. Why am I forgetting his name? From Jackass,
Jeff Tremaine? Bam Margera. Bam Margera.
Bam! Yeah, Bam! Bam
Margera.
Yeah. I don't know why I was forgetting Bam. Bam Margera directed videos from Razorblade Romance and Love Metals to the point that him was in a couple of Jackass episodes, even I think in the movie for a bit, just to show how much him was big at the time, and also like I said, the gothic. I mean, you had a lot of gothic things. So you had Type O Negative, Evanescence. It was the gothic era of the 2000s, early 2000s. After that, the gothic kind of went a bit down.
Dylan.
And I just want to add something for Scott, for both Scott and Dylan. And this is a story that the rest of you already know. Many shows ago, when I said, and I do like him, when I said that I listened to him, I got a lot of shit from those true metal guys. But once they said, "Why do you hear that pussy shit and whatever?" and all I said to him, it attracts the chicks. They just flat out just shut the hell up about it.
Booyah!
He's not wrong.
A 1-2 punch for you, motherfuckers. All right, Dylan, you're number 9.
My number 9. All right, my number 9 large is going to be none other than, this has already been mentioned, Iron Maiden Brave New World.
That's also my number 9.
Wow.
That is my number 2.
Really?
Yeah, but
And number
I
3
got
for
a
Ricky.
feeling that I'm going. but I got the feeling that if I'm going.
Oh, Artur. Now he's
Well,
the laggard. Anyways,
on
continue.
that note, I wasn't even talking there, sorry. The first song that I heard off of this album was Blood Brothers, and that's what got me into it. And I know that this is the return of Bruce Dickinson and whatnot, but I didn't even know that. I didn't know anything about Iron Maiden back then, so I just thought, hey, this is pretty good. And just listen to the whole thing all the way through. It's strong from... I especially love the Wicker Man, Ghost of the Navigator, and then the closer, The Thin Line Between Love and... All of them. So good. So good.
Yeah, I guess, well, number 9, actually, I last minute third tie, because I realized I had this album in my stack, and I'm like, how have I not brought this up yet? But, yeah, Brave New World, I mean, eventually when we do a comeback albums list, this will no doubt be on pretty much everyone's list, because, yeah, this was 4-5 years or so after the release of probably their worst album, Virtual 11. And this was...
Except for the Klansman.
Yeah. And not only... And another note...
I made a list long ago, and I put my worst Iron Maiden, The Final Frontier, and A Matter of Life and Death. I still put Virtual 11 on Bearable.
But with Brave New World, another note some people may have forgotten about, not only was it the return of Bruce Dickinson, but also Adrian Smith, and this was the first time he had the 3 guitars with Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, and Janet Gears on guitar. And it's like, 3 guitar players in one band? Doesn't that seem much? Nope.
Not
and
for
ever
Maiden.
since then, now you got Whitechapel with 3 guitar players in their own right. So, if anything, Maiden became trendsetters with doing the 3 guitar approach, starting with this album, and it works. They all get to shine with solos, with rhythm, everything. I mean, how can anybody hate the song Wicker Man? It's a classic from this time period. But the other album at number 9, because I had this album on my stack right here, and I'm like, how have I not brought this one up yet? To me, calling this band metalcore is not true. If anything, I'd say they're a combination of thrash, melodic death metal, and groove metal, and that is Trivium, Ascendancy. Oh my god, Trivium, ever since I discovered these guys have been one of my favorite bands of all time. Matt Heafy, the modern day James Hetfield, in my personal opinion, because he's got that cadence to his voice. And this album, for an album that was released in the, quote, metalcore run, this is pretty damn thrashy. There was a ton of, like, thrash-style tunes, like Drowned and Torn Asunder, Rain, and then the 2 classics off of this album, or actually 3 classics off this album that I think they still play live. Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr, A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, and Like Light to the Flies. All 3 are classics, and this began the run for mainstream success that Trivium would go on to have. I could have put... Even though a lot of people want to shit on The Crusade, I love The Crusade. I don't care if they were trying to be like Metallica, that it was a fucking good album. I could have put Shogun because that was our most proggy, most experimental, but I went with Ascendancy because this is where it all started with the mainstream push. Ember to Inferno, their first album, was great as well, but the 2000s for me was the decade for Trivium, because after Shogun, the following 2-3 albums, yeah, but now they're back to their older sound, and with a new album coming out at the end of this month. So Trivium, Ascendancy, and Brave New World by Iron Maiden at my number 9. Scott, you're number 9.
I'm not sure which direction you're looking at. We're doing the Brady Bunch. The story of a guy named Butthead. Okay. My number 9, I'm going to guarantee that this album is not on anybody's honorable mentions or a list at all because it's really weird and eccentric. But it's a band I've been listening to for decades. Yes, I have to say, because I was introduced to this band in 1990 with their second album. And in 2009, they put out an album that quintessential them. It's Gwar, Lust in Space.
Gwar.
Yes. I mean, it's fucking Gwar, okay? Do I need to explain?
Right.
I mean, it's a goofy, stuff. But it's great music. Gwar has always been, in my opinion, underrated as music. They can do and have done everything. They can do thrash. They can do punk. They can do hardcore. They can do melodic. They can do melody. They can do ballads. I mean,
they can do prog. Hence,
yes,
when they covered "Carry On, Wayward Son" by Kansas.
Right, and they can do ska, and they can just do absolutely everything.
They even did a soundtrack for a Cartoon Network show. What else can do?
Who else can do that? I mean, come on. So, I mean, very underrated as musicians. Return of Casey Orr donning the Beefcake the Mighty gear. Casey Orr, of course, infamous from Rigor Mortis, and was previously bass player for the band too. And favorites on the album, Let Us Slay, Uberclaw, Lords and Masters. It's another chapter in the D&D inspired mythos of, so you have to have respect for that. And, of course, you'd be remiss if you wouldn't speak highly of Dave Brocky, Odorous Urungus, Hail Odorous. And of course, also, rest in peace to him and to Corey Smith, who was Flatus Maximus for some time. Very happy to hear that Mike Dirks, who has been balls like the jaws of death since the beginning, recovered very well from the bone marrow cancer years ago. So that's a big plus there. Also, good on Mike Bishop, who's recently come back into the band. He was the original Beefcake the Mighty, coming back, taking on the role of Blothar as the new leadlist. Has anybody here gotten to see Gwar live?
Nope.
Put it on your bucket list, please. You gotta go. I have gone several times to go see the band. I have several stories, which I won't be with right now. But if you get a chance, promise me you'll get a chance to, because it is just a spectacle. It's an experience, something I think every metal fan should strive to do sometime. So, yeah,
I probably will.
To me, it may be difficult to ever see Gwar live. Either they come to a festival, or the closest that I could get a chance to see is if I go to Hannah's backyard and I go to Wacken, to either Wacken or to Hellfest to see it, because very rarely I've heard about Gwar coming here to Portugal. But
But yeah, so there you go. And like I said, I got to go a lot with bands that I've listened to. Their second album, Scumdogs of the Universe, my introduction to them, and just blew me away with what they do and performance and their show and their music. So had to put it on there.
And just as a note, probably one of the funniest groups of guys. If anybody here has watched Viva La Bam and saw the episode when they were on, and there was one moment where Dave Brocky in the costume sneaks into bed with Phil and April Margera, and they're freaking out. He's like, "It's scary upstairs." Well, aren't your friends up there with you? They're not my friends. They're not my friends. Like, that was so good.
Over is doing anything. Reading Goodnight is phenomenal. So.
Yeah. Alright, Hannah, you're number 9.
My number 9 is a tie again, because I simply have to put these two albums together. It's Electric Wizard's Dope Throne and Sleep's Dope Smoker.
Perfect combination right there.
Yes.
I was thinking of adding them, but I was like, I'm not much of a stoner guy, but I can respect the living hell what they've done.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy stoner and sludge once in a while, and whenever I do that, those two albums come up immediately, as does Kaya's Welcome to Sky Valley. I mean, those three for me are like the pinnacle of everything stoner and doom and sludge related. And I mean, Electric Wizard and Sleep, I mean, they are kind of not very similar. Especially with their vocal approach. I mean, it's totally different. but still, the feeling those two albums create, I mean, it's just, it's what I imagined it would be to be being high. I've never tried those things, but I mean, listening to this music certainly gets your imagination going. And I mean, while Dope Smoker is an 1 hour plus awesome single song, that's still is interesting. Even I mean, despite this long running time, there's simply awesome songs on Dope Throne by Electric Blizzard. I mean, just take Funeralopolis or the title track. I mean, both are awesome, and there are so many so many other awesome songs on this album. I think both albums are simply great and certainly get you in the mood.
Yep.
Well, while we're on you, Hannah, let's start with you for...
Number 8. Number 8.
I knew that was coming.
I didn't give my number.
Oh, I didn't get to...
Oh, no.
My number
Oh.
9.
Okay, alright.
In a way, either Levi, Hannah, and Ricky will have this one on this list, or none of them will. The Mantle by Agalon.
Fuck you.
Damn you! You son of a bitch!
I second that.
That's my number 4.
I mean, I murdered Hannah, so to say.
Yes, you did.
And Ricky.
Once this
Hey,
thing is over.
Levi just murdered me because he has Primordial on his honorable mentions, and I have it on my number 1. So, but
Oh, by the way,
don't
Ricky, fix your
like-
phone. It's now this way. There you go.
I don't like that many stuff from Portland, Oregon, especially the hipsters and Antifa, but that's a whole different story. And I don't like that much of this avant-garde black metal movement that came out from it. But if there's an album that we talk endlessly here on this podcast, is The Mantle by Agalon. It took me a while to listen after hearing praises from Levi, from Han, from Ricky, and I can say, yeah, I could have put this a little bit higher. I'm sure of it, but you won't be disappointed with my other choices, I assure you. But Agalok's The Mantle, it is really a profound and deep experience. Possibly one of the best albums that can combine both folk metal, a bit of black metal as well, and prog too.
And Doom.
Possibly, exactly. And possibly the only good thing so far that I've seen coming out of that Seattle black metal movement. Although they are from Portland, but whatever. Not my number 9 is The Mantle by Agalon.
I
I
thought,
know you mean,
well,
I
Ricky
know.
came close to a brutal meltdown like the Satanist movement. We'll never forget.
Never.
Holy crap. And not to mention, eventually, soon, we're gonna have a whole episode dedicated to the Mantle. Vele soon. But Artur, I guess, begin with you for number 8.
Number 8? Yeah.
Wait! Wait! Number 8? It wasn't quite as strong!
He tried. He tried.
In a way, Levi, in a way, spoiled also my number 8. And although I agree with Scott, Immortals, All Shall Fall, it is a hell of an album. Sorry, but on that decade, nothing beats Sons of the... Easy, bro. Nothing beats Sons of the Northern Dark. I mean, possibly another one of... possibly a good comeback album, even though Immortal were still going strong despite the black metal movement. But one by one, Sons of Northern Darkness, Tyrants, In My Kingdom Cold, I mean, it's immoral. You can say very little things about how bad they are, but you can never go wrong with Abath being Abath, so to say. Crab walking all over the stage, running down hills and falling on his ass.
Eating a hot dog or singing "Hallowed Be Thy Name" by Iron Maiden with somebody.
Exactly. So, and this one eventually became the final, so far, the final Abath lineup. With him, Hork on drums, and I don't remember who was on bass, but still. Number 8, The Sons of Northern Dark.
Alright, now Hannah, you're number 8.
My number 8 is this little album, Shining.
It's Shining V. Helmstead.
Yes.
Oh.
It is. For me, one of the emerging genres of the 2000s is this whole DSBM movement. I mean, you had awesome bands like Live Lover, with their 3 amazing albums, Pulver Erotic and Concourse, and then bands like Cold Word with Melancholie Hoch 2 and so on. But in my
Forgotten
opinion,
Tomb.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many albums that emerged throughout the 2000s playing this kind of depressive black metal or DSBM and so on. But in my opinion, the pinnacle of these bands and the best album out of released in the 2000s is Shining's Hamstad. I think Nicolas Quartforth's vocals on this album are awesome. The songs themselves are so fucking dark, and you have this kind of, this kind of plot throughout the album, and it just peaks on the last song on this album. Before that you have this kind of piano instrumental as a sort of quiet moment before before everything goes crazy. I don't know how often I've listened to this album, and it's still fresh. It's still highly interesting to me, and whenever they play songs of this album live, it's a highlight of any Shining concert. And they have released awesome music after this one, but nothing has ever come close to Halmstad, and I simply love it to death. Nothing more to say about it.
My number 8 is my final tie. First, I have a gut feeling that Artur, Ricky, and Hannah might have this on their list at a higher place. Maybe not. But my first one and my number 8 spot is, well, Celtic Frost, Monotheist.
Nope, I don't have Celtic Frost. Nope, I don't have it.
No,
I hate myself for forgetting that.
But, the final Celtic Frost album, 2006, after 16 years after they released Vanity Nemesis, which in my opinion is their most underrated album. But Monotheist, talk about a total 180 from the sound that they left off. Where they left off with Vanity Nemesis was a little more traditional heavy metal, thrash metal based. Here, you want to talk about darkness and depressiveness. This is the album, because when you start off with a song like Progeny, but the big song off of this album, A Dying God Coming into Human Flesh, they go from, where they left off, at a traditional heavy metal, thrash metal sound with Vanity Nemesis, to a death, doom, gothic, avant-garde sound, and whoa. Especially when you get to the end with the 3-part triptych, with Totengott, Synagoga Satane, and Winter Requiem Chapter 3 finale. Those 3 songs together just, flow together, with Totengott being nothing but Martin Eric Ain, rest in peace, just screaming like a banshee with crazy things, and then Synagoga Satane being a 14
Isn't that
plus.
also that album that has Ain and Elohim as well?
Yep.
Thought so.
And since Synagoga Satane being like a 14 plus minute song that features guest appearances from Satir from Satyricon, the guy from 1349, and Peter from Hypocrisy, who did the production on this album, all joining in on guest vocals. And then Winter Requiem Chapter 3 finale, a big symphonic classical end to not only the album, but to the end of Celtic Frost. But other songs like Drown in Ashes, probably one of the most depressing songs I've ever heard, with the haunting female vocals. Oz Abysmi Vel Dath, fucking great song, probably my favorite off the album. Obscured, another dark, depressing one. Domain of Decay. Sadly, I don't have the version that has the song Temple of Depression. I got the standard version that doesn't have it for some reason. But masterpiece, great way to close out the career of Celtic Frost. Now, you get Triptychon, which is basically this album on steroids at this point. But the other album I have at my number 8 is a good, like, contrast, well, not contrast, but a good, like, companion to this album, Death the Brutal Way by Asphyx. The comeback album for Asphyx 9 years after they released On the Wings of Inferno. They get Martin Van Drunen back on vocals and Bob Backus on drums. And they come back with a monster of an album that's like, the first half and the second half are like so different. The first half being a little more like death thrash with doom moments. Then you get to the second half where it's strictly death doom with some thrash parts. And when you got songs like the title track, Death the Brutal Way, probably one of the best death metal anthems of all time. Asphyx 2, As They March. Great song. And then when you get further to the end of the album, it just gets doomier and doomier as it goes, with songs like Black Hole Storm.
We Doom You to Death as well?
That was on Death Hand.
Sorry.
But the last 3 of the last 4 songs, Black Hole Storm, Rifle Gun Redeemer, which I love playing the intro riff on my bass, and K-Porn. Wow. And then even the final song, which was an instrumental, The Saw, The Torture, and The Pain. Wow. Asphyx, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated bands that more people should check out. If you like death metal with a little bit of doom and a bit of thrash, this is right up your alley. All hail Asphyx. Long live Martin Van Drunen, one of the best death metal vocalists of all time. Scott.
My number 8 is a tie. This is basically one band that bookended the decade, and one of them has already been mentioned. Levi, you put it in your honorable mentions, and that is the doubleheader from Slayer, God Hates Us All, and Blood. Yeah, because, Slayer, of course, solid delivery as always. Yeah, you said earlier, I agree. God Hates Us All, they kind of delve slightly into the new metal era. They tuned down a little bit into B and C sharp.
And it wasn't, and while it had a bit of that, wasn't nearly as new metal as Diabolus Musica. Thank God Ricky's not here to shove that in my face. Speak of the devil, there he is. Scott, how about you? Again? Scott, you tell Ricky what you have at number 8.
Number 8 is a tie with Slayer's God Hates Us All. Blood.
And what was the other one?
God Hates Us All and World Painted Blood, the 2 from the decade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we were just bringing up how, like, with God Hates Us All had a bit of the new metal, not unlike the album before, which I don't want to hear it.
Oh, you mean, Diablos en Música?
Again, only one good song on that album. The rest of that album is garbage.
Diablos en Música.
Secret favorite, Levi.
No.
You love that album.
You love it to death.
You're among friends. Come on. Admit it.
It's okay, Levi. It's okay. No one can hurt you anymore.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Get your binky.
Anyway, continue.
But yeah, anyway. Like I said, Slayer bookends the decade with these 2 albums. great songs overall. You know, Bloodline and Discipline and Disciple. Excuse me. Of course, God Hates Us All, but also Cast Down. Here Comes the Pain.
Payback.
Fun fact about God Hates Us All: it was released September 11th, 2000. Interesting. And
Brutal irony.
Interesting for two things. On that day, a very good album and a shitty album, they both came out on that same day. God Hates Us All and Silver Side Up by Nick.
Oh, shit.
Nice. And of course, World Painted Blood, the title track, Snuff, Not of This God. You know, solid stuff from Slayer. Loved it already.
And also the album cover. I like the
yes.
original album cover, not the alternative one.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
But with the whole 9/11 thing, well, yeah. There's a reason why they changed it.
And incidentally, the next three on my list are going to go fast because they've already been. So,
Ricky.
My number 8, Burp. I don't know if Hannah or Artur were the one who spoiled it, but I cannot deny the greatness of Amon Amarth. I had to put Twilight of the Thunder God. I got into Amon Amarth maybe 3 years ago, 3 years ago, after we started talking for a bit, and one of the bands that you guys recommended me to listen to. And Twilight of the Thunder God, their best album, in my opinion, their best work they have done. After Twilight of the Thunder God, they still kind of kept that same sound, but they changed a bit. But still, Twilight of the Thunder God, probably their best album they've ever created. What more can I say?
Dylan.
All right. I haven't eaten anything today, so I can't burp. But
I'll take care of that for you.
Right now? Oh.
You're number 8? Damn it.
Good enough.
That wasn't
Works
quite
for
as
me.
strong.
I put Violent Revolution by Creator for number 8. It was very close between this one and Enemy of God. But I gave the edge to Violent Revolution. And it's solid from start to finish. Like, you know, every album on this top 10 is going to be solid from start to finish. And, like, even then, it's really not even Creator's best album. I'd put it top 3, personally. But, yeah, Violent Revolution, the song itself. Reconquering the Throne is a good opener. But, yeah, just as a whole, Creator.
Not to mention that album, if you ask a lot of people, started the transition where they added more melody to where they are now.
That's true, yeah.
So, from Violent Revolution to Gods of Violence, top-notch stuff. And now, while we're on you, let's start with you, Dylan, for number 7.
Alright, this one will go quick because my number 7, Slayer, World Painted Blood.
Nice.
Scott?
I really can't say anything else. Everything's been said.
Yeah, by Scott, yeah.
And I'm the same boat because my number 7, Immortals, Sons of Northern Darkness. Yeah, brutal black metal with a purpose. You know, it's not just there just to make noise. It has good songs to it. Tyrants, One by One, you know, all the Toro just mentioned earlier. And of course, Levi, you mentioned in the honorable mentions. Produced by Peter, and I never pronounce his last name right, Tagrin, whatever.
Tagrin, yeah.
From Hypocrisy and Pain.
Tagrin?
Yeah.
Absolute genius. Just amazing. He's at the helm of this album.
Damn it.
You just remembered something, didn't you?
Yeah, I just remembered, speaking of Peter and the band, another band he was a part of. I'm going to go ahead and put this honorable mention. Bloodbath. Really any Bloodbath album from the 2000s, whether it be Resurrection Through Carnage, Nightmares Made Flesh, or Fathomless Mastery.
I almost thought you were going to say Hypocrisy.
I was going to say Hypocrisy too.
Yeah, just when I heard Peter, and I brought him up with Celtic Frost, but yeah, it's like made me think, I forgot about Bloodbath.
He produced this album too. So, I mean, that tells you right there the breadth this guy, the pedigree this guy has in the metal world is amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an amazing album. By the way, Abbat does one hell of a man.
Yeah. And speaking of Peter and his band Pain, that's a band, Dylan, you should listen to, because they are symphonic industrial.
Industrial, yep.
All right. Well, I love it already.
Highly inspired by Fear Factory,
Yes.
as Peter's brought up, and Ron.
Send me
So
some links right now.
I will.
Although Pain tends to be more melodic. Pain tends to be a little bit more on the melodic side.
So there you go.
All right. My number 7, in my opinion, the best thrash album of the decade and one of the best comebacks.
Saint Anger.
Look at Scott's face. Look at him. He looks like he's about to eat your head off.
I had to. I'm sorry. I had to. If it ain't Saint Anger, it's Downloads in Musica.
I'd rather listen to Saint Anger. There, you have my answer. Anyways, but yeah, my number 7, in my opinion, the best thrash album of the decade and one of the best comebacks, Formation of Damnation by Testament. 9 years after The Gathering came out, which The Gathering's a hell of an album. That was almost a super group, because you had Chuck Billy, Eric Peterson, you also had Steve DiGiorgio, James Murphy, and Dave Lombardo. It's like, that's kind of cheating a little bit, but it was a hell of an album. But then you get to Formation of Damnation, you get 4 out of the 5 classic members back, Chuck, Eric, Greg Christian back on bass, and the mighty Alex Skolnick on guitar. And you had Paul Bostaph from Forbidden and Slayer on drums, and he did a hell of a job on this album. When you start off the album with an instrumental for The Glory Of that leads into More Than Meets the Eye, you're in for a hell of an album. And then as it goes on, you get songs like The Evil Has Landed, all about 9/11, the title track being almost like Chuck's definitive death metal moment, because that song is nothing but growling vocals, no melodic vocals at all. Songs like Killing Season having a little bit more of like a groove to it. Afterlife being a great one. I actually used the song Dangers of the Faithless as a theme song for when I used to do car wrestling, when I was doing a heel gimmick. Because it fit what I was doing at the time. But yeah, just top to bottom, a masterpiece. And after this, Testament has just gotten better and better. Well, I can't say for Titans of Creation because I haven't listened to it yet. I know Scott reviewed it on his channel. And I still need to listen to it. But like Dark Roots of Earth, Brotherhood of the Snake.
You'll love that album. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, number 7, Formation of Damnation by Testament. In my mind, the best thrash album of the 2000s. Ricky.
My number 7 is the last tie I have. And I gotta thank one of my best friends, his name is Chris, who I've been best friends with him for part of the decade, ever since 2011. He introduced me to this band. I have both Dear Agony and Phobia by Breaking Benjamin on my list.
Ooh, I forgot about Breaking Benjamin.
Phobia...
We Are Not Alone, honorable mention.
Yeah. I mean, Phobia, it was the album that gave them their biggest hit of all time, Diary of Jane. Also an underrated song, you got Dance with the Devil, you got songs like...
Breath,
that was the good one. It gave the band some legitimacy in the alternative side of metal, because at the time, alternative was very big. Bands like Two, spoiler alert, you're on my list. Bands like Evanescence, bands like... I don't want to say Linkin Park.
Stone Sour.
Yeah, Stone Sour. Bands like Linkin Park, even though Linkin Park was more new metal, but beside the point. This album gave the band so much popularity, gave them so much touring, gave them everything, to the point that in 2009, they made probably my favorite, which is Dear Agony. Songs like I Will Not Bow, Anthem of the Angels, the title track, Without You. It is a perfect way at the time, because they were going through some legal shit at the time. Perfect album to close the 2000s. And also the album cover of Ben Burley's MRI, because I think he had I think it was brain cancer, so they used that as the album cover, his brain scan, which I give him credit for that. I give him credit for having the balls to put that much into the album. And then the band broke up in the 2010, so recently in 2017,
2015.
2015, they came back with a new lineup. Ben Jerry's still kicking ass, and like I said, 2 albums that were introduced by one of my best friends for the past 10 years. Great albums that get into the alternative side of metal.
That reminds me, I want to cover Diary of Jane if I ever start a band.
Hannah.
My number 7 is I don't think anyone knows this here, but it's one of my favorite bands out of the American black metal scene of the 2000s is Cobalt, with their phenomenal album Gin, released in 2009. And
9?
Cobalt, yeah, 9. Cobalt has released some awesome music in the 2000s, like their amazing album Eater of Birds and Slow Forever. But my personal favorite is Gin, which is dedicated to Ernest Hemingway and Hunter Thompson. I mean, they even have a picture of young Ernest Hemingway on the album cover. And the thing is, on this album you have some very heavy, very dark black metal, but also on other songs it heads in this kind of desert rock, sludgy direction. For example, on the song Dry Body. I mean, it's a very slow going song, but it gets heavier and heavier. It's musically, this is just such an interesting album. I've listened to it I don't know how many times. I love it, and my favorite song on this is probably the very perfectly named song "Pregnant Insect." And somewhere throughout the middle of the song, you suddenly have this kind of Native American chants appearing. I mean, a lot of American black metal bands would copy some of this style, and of course from Agarlock and Weakling later in the 2010s. But this is an awesome predecessor to this whole movement that is going on nowadays in the American black metal scene. I mean, it's an awesome album. The lyrics on this album are fucking fantastic. I can highly recommend this one. Not a lot of people know about it, but I think it's not on the same level as an Agarlock, but somewhere close beneath that. Awesome album. I mean, their entire discography is bloody amazing. Check it out. I love it. You should too. Yeah.
Artur.
First, I gotta ask something to Levi when he did his death metal vocalist. Why the fuck isn't Carl Willits there?
Is that a segue to what your number 7 is?
No, I just wanted to do this
Random question.
because I kind of had this peep when I saw his video of the list. But my number 7, in a way, has been a bit spoiled. The Blackening by Machine Head. Probably the last great album that Machine Head ever did in their career, and I remember still listening in to tracks that were not just on YouTube but also on TV, like Aesthetics of Hate, Now I Lay Thee Down, Halo, as well. And funny thing, and this was told by Rob Flynn, when he started, before he had it, Hallowed Be Thy Name, the Iron Maiden cover to the special version of the Blackening, the first time that he did play Hallowed Be Thy Name live was here in Portugal. This was on Rock in Rio 2008, headlined by Metallica. But Machine Head, they said on that very same stage that this was the first time that they were going to play live, and what it was, Hallowed Be Thy Name, the Iron Maiden cover. But still, as we grossly said, 2007's Blackening, possibly the last great album that Machine Head ever did.
Yeah. Alright, now we're on to number 6. I shall begin. Well, Artur, here's the Nile album. It's Nile at number 6, but it's not Annihilation of the Wicked. You were correct. It's in their darkened shrines. I mean,
although Annihilation of the Wicked is a worthy
even the album after that could be worthy. Even Black Seeds of Vengeance too. Really, any album there's in the 2000s.
Afterward was Ediphallic.
Yeah, but I went with In Their Darkened Shrines because of 3 songs in particular that stuck out. Sarcophagus, for its like more doomy side, and the melodic stuff towards the end. The 4-part title track at the end, In Their Darkened Shrines, with like Hall of Saurian Entombment, Invocation of the Sidious Heresy, Destruction of the Temple of the Enemies of Ra, and Ruins being an epic closer. But the song that puts this album on the list, Una, Slayer of the Gods. I mean, starting off with a tribute to Candlemas, Well of Souls, with the riff, before it just goes full-on speed and absolute chaos. I mean, Niall, in my opinion...
Full-on speed, no. Full-on ludicrous speed. If you don't get that reference...
I gotcha. I gotcha.
But yeah, and I mean, top to bottom, songs like The Blessed Dead, Escaration Text, Wind of Horus. I mean, there's just a lot of classic Nile on this album. And for me, this and to some extent Annihilation of the Wicked is the pinnacle of Niall's career. Even though I like Amongst the Catacombs and Nephron Ka, even though that was 98, their start. But still, this album, thanks to Sarcophagus, Una, Slayer of the Gods, and the 4-part title track at the end, masterpiece of technical, progressive death metal. Scott.
My number 6 has already been mentioned a couple times. For the time when the album came out, the band was breaking through, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, check out this album." You might. When Slipknot was first coming out, I'm like, "What the fuck is this shit?" But like, "Oh, give it a try. You might like it," and I did. I picked up the album. I love the album. I think it's fantastic. People Equal Shit, Disaster Piece, My Plague, Left Behind. All the great stuff on there. But also Heretic Anthem, you name it. I mean, all the tracks are great. But another aspect of it is really Corey Taylor's vocalization depth. The way he's able to, do the melodic stuff. He has to add sometimes that breathy delivery, especially during the Iowa track. It just really adds to what it is you're feeling when you listen to this song. You can imagine like sitting in a dark room with headphones on, listening to just like formulate these nightmarish images in your mind, and that's something I really get into when it comes to songs like that. So yeah, Iowa Slipknot, and for anybody out there who've seen the 25th anniversary Roadrunner, fuck Monty Connor.
Wowie. Hannah.
I think it's time to commit mass suicide. Because my number 6 is Black Water Park by Raphael.
That's my number 6 too!
How could you do this?
Even Dylan.
Damn it!
I'm safe.
Damn it!
What?
You mean this Blackwater Park?
We can't see your
Artur.
camera.
We can't see you, Artur. We haven't seen you for a while.
That's...
Son of a...
I was sure this was going to happen.
There we go. That Blackwater Park.
My number 4, along with another album. It is the third of my 3 ties.
We broke Levi. Yay!
Again.
I still say that I committed mass genocide here because of that. Enough said.
Oh, yeah, that's true as well. Well, Black Water Park. It simply is my favorite Opeth album. I think it's beautiful yet harsh at times. Every song on this album is unique yet they form this kind of epic.
Overseller.
Overseller.
Okay, Shawn Michaels, calm down.
What are you, Hulk Hogan now? Working Shawn?
I think Michael Ackerfeld's vocals on this album are simply awesome. I mean, he can easily sing you to sleep and scare you to death. And everything on this album, I mean, I'm not the biggest Opeth fan, sorry, but sadly that's the case with me and Opeth. But this album, I mean, I really appreciate the beauty yet harsh moments on this album. I think it's fucking awesome. I mean, I would pay a lot of money to see them perform Blackwater Park in its entirety. Would love them to do an entire tour dedicated to this album. I think it's fucking perfect. Enough said. I think you would have a lot more to say about this album than I do, so I won't talk too much.
I just want to say briefly, this is my number 6 too. I agree with everything Hannah said. Now my favorite Opeth album, that's between My Arms Your Hers or Moonlight's Vertical, which I should have put it here on the list, but I completely forgot. But again, I couldn't deny the brilliance of Michael Ackerfeld and this album alone, which I think I've seen in Loudwire, Metal Sucks as having it at their number 1 in doing their list, which might seem low, but compared to the other albums I have on my list, I had to make some tough decisions.
Okay, now that I've recovered this slightly, even though my voice is going away because I just don't know what to do with myself.
Hopefully that looks cool.
It looked like you were going that way, not towards me, but the opposite side. But, alright,
There you go. Sell it, bitch!
No, I went the wrong way. One more time. One more time. There, that was better. Okay, so... I don't fucking know, Dylan.
Hey, my soul's been crushed too.
I know! I feel bad!
I didn't sell it enough, but it has been crushed. Anyway, number 6. I'm surprised no one's even mentioned this group yet, this artiste. My number 6 is the 10th Sublevel of Suicide by Leviathan.
Oh, really? That came out in the 2000s?
Oh yeah.
Damn!
2003.
I swore it could have been like the 2010s.
Well, and like that being said, like Scar-Sighted is probably still my favorite album of like the last decade of the 2010s. Like the sheer depth here, like it doesn't really feel like you're in hell, more like purgatory, I would say is what it's
kind of like how you were feeling last
like
night.
Right now, or yesterday.
Yeah, last night, yes.
Yes, very much so, in fact. But yeah, just great sounds from start to finish. Hello, whoever that.
Oh, it's Raphael.
Raphael.
He joined in pretty late.
Yeah, try and grasp the context of this. I really appreciate the name of the song "Fucking Your Ghost in Chains of Ice."
What?
Very nice title. And then, of course, the 15-minute-long epic closer at the door to the 10th Sublevel of Suicide. That's my numero 6.
Well, real quick, since Raphael has just joined in, real quick, give us your numbers 10 through 6. Nah, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
How about now?
Oh,
There you are.
There we go. There you go.
Now we got you.
Alright, I got Deftones, White Pony for number 10. Number 9, Green Day's American Idiots. Number 8, We the Kings. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, and number 6, Paramore's Riot.
American Idiot. I almost thought of putting it, but I was like, I mean, it's my taste, but like, wow.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah. And I think Levi just went somewhere.
I went to go hide in the shadows because...
He gone.
What?
You mean in the shadow of our pale companion?
Oh,
Oh,
Punch!
wow.
We got him!
Oh, my God.
I think I did not see
Oh,
number
Bianca!
6.
Come back.
Alright,
Come back.
Artur, you're number 6.
I'm going to say a band that I don't think that many people have mentioned, and this is the first of 3 ties. The last one is an Opeth tie, so. But I really did enjoy these albums. And possibly, I found the only good thing that I love. I have 2 Nevermore albums. I have Dead Heart in a Dead World, and I have This Godless in Dead. Dead Heart in a Dead. I mean, it has the cover of Simon and Garfunkel about Sound of Silence, but that to me is not this album with thrash influences, prog influences too, a bit of a darker as well, and Jeff Loomis is a hell of a guitar, and I'm glad that he went to Artur to give Michael Emmett a bit of a
Yeah.
cool down. So, and World End, R.I.P. He was really a hell of a singer. I mean, Narcosynthesis, Evolution 169, Believe in Nothing, and ending up with Dead Heart are both amazing. Although Odyssey is their last album, but this Godless Endeavor to me, another one of its best. I mean, final product, My Acid Words, Sell My Heart for Stones, Some of Lydia and Eva, the very same title song, This Godless Endeavor, and possibly one of the last great works. And what I found out was Dead Heart in a Dead World still had Chris Broderick on the guitars, and Dead Heart and Godless Endeavor now I had only Jeff Loomis. So my number 6, the Nevermore tie, Dead Heart and Godless Endeavor, both in 2000 and 2000.
Scott?
I think did I do my numbers? I already did. I think it was Slipknot.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Who have I not gotten?
I think Dylan, and then
No, we did Dylan.
No,
You, Levi?
I did mine. I think we got everybody's numbers.
okay, yeah.
We all-
Alright, now, halfway through, on to the top 5! Oh, God!
Here we go.
Well, my number 5, and I am shocked that this one hasn't been brought up yet. In my opinion, if we ever decide to do an episode on top 10 debut albums, this would no doubt be on my list. Especially given their age. What were they, like 5 when they did this album? Well, no, the average age was 16 because they were all basically in high school when they did this album. Winds of Creation by Decapitated.
Oh,
You want to talk about a death metal masterwork in the 2000s? This was it. It's technical, but not quite tech death. It's very much more traditional death metal than tech death, even though there's a lot of technical parts. And even a little bit of Pantera influence, and some of the riffs kind of having a bit of that kind of like thrash groove sound to it, but it's still brutal. Peter from Vader produced this album, and you can hear the Vader influence on this. And they were all like worshipping Vader, but going even more crazy with it. I mean, the title track to start off, amazing. Way to Salvation, I like playing the intro riff on bass. The Eye of Horror is probably their best song ever. Human's Dust. And then the final two songs, the good Dance Macabre. Not to say Ghosts isn't bad, it's a good song, but
Prequel.
Screw you!
I was just waiting for Scott to repeat her on that.
Yes. My favorite outro ever on his channel.
But yeah, the haunting instrumental Dance Macabre that leads into one of the best covers of all time, cover of Slayer's Mandatory Suicide, to close the album out. Top to bottom, a masterpiece of death metal. And their drummer, Vitek, rest in peace, was only 15 when they recorded this album on drums, and he makes all other drummers look like amateurs almost for his age. Like, it's incredible.
Kind of like Possessed. I mean, they were young when they recorded Seven Churches.
Yeah, especially Larry Lalonde. He was only like 15 or 16. But yeah, amazing death metal from 2000. From Poland, not to mention home of Vader, home of Behemoth, and so many others. And I just realized I forgot Behemoth Demigod. Honorable mention.
That's my number 5.
Alright, well, go ahead.
Oh, well, yeah.
All right, Dylan.
Yep, Poland. Yep, definitely. It's hard to argue that this is Behemoth's best album. Brutal from start to finish. So strong, so loud. It's all the best elements of Behemoth. I can't pronounce the final track, The Reign of Shimu Hor. But it's great. Whatever it is, however you pronounce that, it's great. But yeah, along with Conquer All, Towards Babylon, Sculpting the Throne, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I had completely forgot about Behemoth. But there you go. Scott.
Oh, my number 5. It's already been mentioned. I think you have mentions, but definitely one of the best thrash metal albums I think of the decade. Megadeth, and I got to go back to the bands I grew up listening to, and this one takes me back to the early days of Megadeth. Dave was still pissed about being fired because he's a drunk bastard, but that being said, great songs in the album. This Day We Fight is brutal. 1320 is like straight up old school speed metal. Love that track. And you mentioned, of course, the title track Head Crusher and many other songs on. This definitely was like a return to form for Megadeth. Now, what I don't remember is this before or after Dave lost feeling in his head?
After.
Okay, so this was like a comeback.
7 years after, yeah.
It was. Okay. I couldn't remember which time frame that was, but yeah, that shows you right there the kind of determination he had to get better, and he did, and came back full force with this. So top 5 for me had to be number 5.
Hannah.
I mean, I'm German. I have to mention this German band, Rammstein, Mutter.
Honorable mention again.
I was thinking of putting that on my list, but couldn't.
Das ist mein Nummer 3.
Das ist sehr...
How do I forget Mutter?
How could you forget Mutter?
And to top out, she has to.
I mean, Rammstein
It's my number 3. It's my number 3. So, in a way, my top 3 has already been...
I mean, Rammstein, besides Mutter, have also released Reise in the 2000s, which is an awesome album as well, and was a bit more experimental than their previous albums. But then again, the emotional depth you have on Mutter, especially on the song Mutter, is just beyond words. I mean, the lyrics on the Mutter track are so fucking deep about an artificially conceived human being who longs for his mother, but will never be granted his wish. And I mean, it's just so the way this kind of desperate way that Till sings on this song, but also on other songs. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And well, so sad in a way, and I fucking love this song, but also the other songs on this album. I mean, Ich Will is like the perfect live song. I mean, they even finish the set list of their 2019 stadium tour with that song, and then you have Linksstreif here, a political statement in itself, and then the epic and awesome Mein Herz brennt, and so many other amazing songs. One of my personal favorite songs on this album that is often overlooked is Spieluhr, which again it's dark about this kind of infant or young child being buried alive. It's so black romantic, and I think black romantic is one perfect word to describe Rammstein lyrics. For me, this album is perfect. The same goes for Reise Reise, but then again, I think Mutter had a greater impact than Reise Reise. And I love Rammstein. Everybody knows it, so...
I thought you were gonna have Mutter, Reise Reise, Rosenrot, and Levi in all four of them.
Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Liefert. I mean, Liebesfalida, there are good songs on it, but I think in contrast to the other albums they have released, it falls a bit short. And I mean, Rosenrot, it's kind of a collection of B-sides. I enjoy them, but I think both albums aren't as strong as Reise Reise and Mutter.
Mm-hmm. True.
I was going to mention Mookser, but I didn't want to because I look like a dumbass trying to pronounce everything.
Yeah, it's nice to hear it pronounced properly.
Yeah.
I mean, I have the advantage
Definitely appreciate
of being a German.
Oh, I love Rammstein.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it's Rammstein.
Rammstein.
Rammstein!
Rammstein.
Ah! Nine! Alright, Raphael, you're number 5.
Number 5, I chose 3 Days Grace 1X album.
Wow.
There are a few songs on that album I really do like.
Yeah, I like that too. Let's go to Riot. Let's go
Animal
to
I Have
Riot.
Become being my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
It is the song that blew off in that album. But, I mean, I kind of don't like the fact Adam Gunter left 3 Days Grace, but I would admit 1X was one of his best works during when he was in that.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And what people don't know, the song Never Too Late was actually a song that his ex-wife wrote the lyrics.
Artur.
Well, a bit my number. I don't know who did it, but I think they spoil a little bit. I was going to consider putting here a Mastodon duology, but after checking, I can easily put the trilogy as well. I mean, Leviathan, Blood Mountain, and Crack the Sky. Although Remission as well, it is a fantastic album. I mean, I already said it when we did our top 10 concept album. Moby Dick, talking about the Blood Mountain and then Crack the Sky, especially with the progressive and kind of sludgy side of Mastodon, without a doubt one of the best drummers of all time, Brad Taylor. But and what's even more funnier is that in the space of 7 years they released these albums. I mean, Leviathan is 2004, Mountain is 2006, Crack the Sky is 2009, and this makes it for a very good, borderline perfect trilogy by Mastodon. As I said, Leviathan, Blood Mountain, and Crack the Sky.
Ricky.
My number 5, numero 5, and There you go. It's been spoiled from the very beginning. I think Levi mentions, Oliver mentions, 2 Lateralis. Now, 2 gets a lot of shit.
I did as well. I did.
Oh, yeah. 2 gets a lot of shit for taking too long to create their albums. But boy, is it worth the wait. I mean, perfect example for Inoculum. It took them almost, God, 13 years to make it. That was worth the wait. With Lateralis was my introduction to Tool alongside with their debut Undertow. But I mean, you got songs like Schism, Parabola, the title track. Oh my God, a perfect mixture of progressiveness, alternative. I would recommend Lateralis to an upcoming Tool fan. If you want something to start up with, Lateralis is the perfect way to start up with. Because as much as people hate Tool, they cannot deny they make some good-ass music.
And some creepy music videos.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Oh, yeah. It makes me feel like I'm fucking on acid or something.
It makes me look like they're inspired by kind of like a little bit of Tim Burton style. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tim
now
Burton.
I think about it, yeah. Now on to the top 4. Scott, you're number 4.
The band I have at number 4 is a band that put out in the 2000s not one album, not 2 albums, 5 albums. And I may have to disqualify myself because they play rock and roll. And that would be Inferno from Motorhead.
Motorhead.
Nice badass Lemmy Funko Pop.
It's sandwiched right in the middle of all 5 decade, but in my opinion, it's the best one of the 5.
It's rock and roll too, so Motorhead stays.
They play everything. You know, they're rock and roll, but they play thrash, they play punk, they play blues rock. And on this album, you've got blues tracks like House Blues. You've got Keys to the Kingdom, which is blues rock. But you've also got groovy tracks like Suicide. You've got Killers and The Year of the Wolf, my favorite track, In the Name of Tragedy, just a classic. To hear them play that live is phenomenal. And, you know, Lemmy is God. We know that. He's been a big influence on me for years and years and years. And just had to throw him on here. Top 4, definitely for me. So, horns high to Lemmy.
Well, my number 4 was spoiled earlier by Artur. Agalok the Mantle. What more can I say about it that hasn't been said so many times?
And it was pissed.
Well, she was already pissed when Artur brought it up at number 9, I believe. So.
Oh, I was pissed as well.
Hey, Levi, you spoiled my number 1, so as Vince McMahon would say, kiss my ass, damn it.
Yeah!
Alright. Raphael, you're number 4.
Number 4. It's going to have to be one of my favorite albums from Disturbed, and that was 10,000 Fists. Especially the cover they did from Genesis, Land of Confusion.
One of the best covers of all time.
Yes. Yeah, that was solid. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
David Draymond, the Phil Collins of heavy metal. Not only in voice, but he looks just like him now. Now that he doesn't have his, his soul patch piercing anymore.
Yeah, that he took off the ring. You know what's his excuse for that? He said, "I don't want to look like a Hot Topic employee."
Too late.
Too late. He was Hot Topic before Hot Topic was even a thing.
Good lord. Hannah, you're number 4.
My number 4 is the last tie on my list, and it consists of 2 American heavy metal bands. I've never been a huge fan of the American heavy metal bands that came out in the 2000s, like Godsmack, Disturbed, Slipknot. I'm not a big fan of them, but I really like System of a Down's Toxicity. I think it's a phenomenal album. I mean, all of the best songs are on here, like Toxicity, Aerials, and of course Chop Suey. And
some
also,
underrated songs too,
yeah,
like Prison Song.
I was about to
Bounce.
mention that. Well, there are a lot of awesome songs on here, both political and apolitical songs. I think what has fascinated me about System of a Down a lot is or are the political statements also on later albums, but especially on this one. I think it's about time that we get a new System of a Down record, although I'm very skeptical that we will get anything anytime soon. I think vocally, Serge is an awesome singer, and I mean just Darren's musical genius is something else entirely. Also his work on Scars on Broadway, but I mean for me it picked on this album. Would love to see them once, but so far I haven't managed to see them. And then the other album has been mentioned a lot before. It's Tool Lateralis. I'm not the biggest Tool fan, although I appreciate the musical work on Fear Inoculum, but I think the music has peaked on this album. There's so many awesome songs on here. I think my favorite Tool song with Parabol and Parabola is on this album. I just love how dreamy it starts out and quiet, and then it gets heavy, and then Maynard James Keenan screams on this song when he screams alive. I mean, I love that moment. For me, that's the perfect musical moment on this song, and it's, in my opinion, it's simply their best album. And I mean, they've gotten a lot of hate, and I can understand it. I'm not the biggest Tool fan myself, but I love Lateralis.
Artur.
We can't hear you.
Speak!
Artur.
We lost him again.
Speak, damn it!
Maybe you should
Technical difficulties.
wait.
The show would be
It's
nothing
the
without them.
last of my ties, and
Oh, that was a big lag.
I think it would be better if you would exit the call and then...
Yeah,
And then come back in.
But I also
Oh, man.
God damn it! Stupid camera.
Stupid camera. I just heard that.
Dumb shit! The camera, that is.
Oh man.
Yeah, but whatever. Four. You still can listen?
Kind of.
Kind of.
Words get through.
It cuts off in and out.
Okay,
Oh,
oh,
there he went.
he left.
Alright, I guess we'll get back to him when he gets.
Whoa,
He's back.
testing Artur, testing Portugal. Can you
Earth
hear
to
us?
Artur.
I'm here.
Alright.
I'm here.
Alright.
I don't know what's going on, but and this one has crashed me 3 times already. But that's.
But anyways,
my
your number 4.
kind of has already been spoiled. This Blackwater Park from 2001, and I think Levi's going to kill me right now. 2005's Ghost Reveries. I knew it. I mean, Opeth, is there anything we cannot say about Blackwater Park? I mean, but Ghost Reverie, probably one of the last albums that Opeth did before they went on a more proggier side with, okay, Watershed still has some death metal influences, especially on songs like Ex Omega, Heir Apparent, and even The Lotus Eater. But afterwards, with Heritage and others, they went more on the proggier side, and with In Count of Venom, they've come back. But Ghost Reveries. I mean, Ghost of Perdition, Atonement, Beneath the Mire, Harlequin Forest, and even the Grand Conjuration. I mean, this probably is where, with both Blackwater Park and Ghost Reveries, is probably where Opeth was at its best, combining both prog and death metal as well. And those two are my number 4. And Levi is dead.
Wake up, Levi.
Wait, let's drop him.
Wakey, wakey.
I died of happiness.
You died of happiness.
I mean, that's the best way to die, though.
Now I'm lost again. So I've gotten Artur, Scott, myself, and Hannah's number 4s.
And you got
And I got Raphael, so that leaves Ricky and Dylan. Dylan.
Alright. I don't think this band has been mentioned yet, which is kind of incredible. But my number 4 has to be Waking the Fallen by Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh.
I knew Levi was going
their metal.
That's my number 3.
There you go. Yep.
Metal day.
Yep. It was hard between this and City of Evil, because I think I like listening to City of Evil more. But, like, Waking the Fallen is much more diverse.
Yes.
Let me pull it up quick. Yeah, like, just from, like obviously, I think this is the same for me and Levi, as that we first heard Chapter 4 in NASCAR Thunder 2004.
Yep.
Not sure what happened.
Raphael right there.
My phone.
Someone had whiplash there. But then you'll get, like, Unholy Confessions, Eternal Rest, Radiant Eclipse, Clairvoyant. From start to finish, fantastic album. It's great. The vocals are fantastic. The guitar work is great. I love it.
Ricky, you're number 4.
Oh, God. Hannah spoiled it with her number 5. Oh, give me Kraft, Muta. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I did not listen to Muta when it came out, which was, I think, in 01?
01.
I think 01. 01. I got into Rammstein, well, Muta specifically, like around 2012, 2013. And I remember listening to the album, and then I thought it was okay. It was good. I mean, you had songs like Mad Hands Branch, Ishville, Links 123, Feuerfly, and then Muta came up. I started to feel this thing in my stomach that made me feel a bit uncomfortable, but yet felt right. That's how much this album can makes you feel so many emotions that I mean, it sometimes makes you want to cry without even knowing what it's talking about. That's how much powerful this album is. But once you know the lyrics, you understand the meaning behind it and the power it gives you. I mean, it gives me chills just thinking about it. Just like, oh damn. That's how much Muta has impacted not only the members of Rammstein, but industrial in the 2000s. Because in the 2000s, how many albums can you say were from a foreign language with that much raw power in it? Not that many. Yeah, that's my number 4.
Alright, now we're on to the top 3. Well, Dylan, you spoiled mine. It's Waking the Fallen.
3. I can start with my I can start also with my number 3 because it has already been spoiled. It's Rammstein's Mutter. It's
Oh yeah.
There you go.
I think
Oh, That lagging.
Jeez, Artur is having... That was weird.
Laggy.
I heard
I'm sorry.
my laugh from like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What a piece of shit!
Oh, God.
Oh god,
Wow.
Artur.
Kicked out all together.
Oh, Lord.
God, Artur.
God damn it.
I'm back to me, Portugal.
Damn it,
Damn you all to hell!
straight to hell. My little Aussie.
Number 3.
Continue.
3.
My number 3 is. I won't say too much more about Muta, although I shared this story with most of you, but I can also this story with Scott and Dylan as well. I also got into Rammstein too much from the album itself, but through the early video clips that they used to broadcast on some channel that used to be the edgy channel before it became mainstream, and it was not TV, but it showed all the videos from the Mutter album. It showed Link, 2, 3, 4. It showed Firefly, especially this was the year when Triple X came out, the movie. It showed Firefly. It showed Lynx. It showed Sonne as well, their own twisted adaptation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and also the daunting. This is how I got to Rammstein. But eventually, when I got into Rammstein, Mutter was not the first album that it was Sehnsucht. I bought Mutter afterwards. Hannah also mentioned one of the other songs that is very underrated here in this album. Besides the 6 that became the hits, I also can say Zwiter is an underrated, and Reinhaus as well. So I know what they mean. I know what they mean, but but nevertheless,
I think they're fucking awesome.
exactly. My number 3 is.
Well, to continue with my number 3, Waking the Fallen, I mean, yeah, like Dylan said, we both pretty much heard of this thanks to the song Chapter 4 being on NASCAR Thunder 04, as I've talked about on this show several times, but going back to listen to the album a little bit after NASCAR Thunder 04, top to bottom, it's, in my opinion, their best because of the diversity, and this was the last in their metalcore phase before they rid the screaming vocals altogether, for the most part, from that point on. City of Evil was a close second for me, for sure, but Waking the Fallen, I mean, songs like Unholy Confessions, Eternal Rest, my personal favorite, Radiant Eclipse, I Won't See You Tonight, Parts 1 and 2, Clairvoyant Disease, where they kind of go a little Iron Maiden-esque with their sound. I mean, you got a lot of different elements thrown into this. You got some melodic death metal, some power metal even, with the guitar harmonies, and a little thrash thrown into their, at the time, metalcore sound. And then, after this album, they go straight up metal, and now, eventually, prog metal with The Stage, and they're supposed to have an album out this year, and I look forward to seeing where they go next, because every album that they've put out since the beginning is always vastly different from anything else they had done, like Sounding the Seventh Trumpet being a little bit more on the punky side of the metalcore sound, this being on the more metal side of the metalcore sound, then City of Evil being more straight up metal, the self-titled album having a little bit of an experimental side, Nightmare, their darkest album, Hail to the King, more of an homage to classic metal, and then The Stage, prog metal. It's like, are they going to go death metal next? I doubt it.
I hope so.
Bad Country,
And also Riff the Reef.
on which year did Bad Country come?
No, Backcountry was on City of Evil.
Backcountry was in City of Evil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my number 3, Waking the Fallen. Raphael?
My number 3 will have to be Korn's Take a Look in the Mirror.
How could we forget about Korn? That's the thing. None of us mentioned Korn up to now.
I feel it's because Korn wasn't quite the same during the 2000s.
That I agree.
I still say that with Untouchables, they still were. Possibly Untouchables was the last great album that I've heard from. Take a Look in the Mirror.
It's an okay album, I wouldn't lie. I still find stupid that the drummer decided to leave just to be a fucking model. And at the end, he has his own restaurant. He tried to sue his own band. It didn't work. Because he wanted to go back after all those years, and they already found a drummer that's way better than him anyway.
Ricky?
I don't know who spoiled it. I think
at
it was.
they work with Joey Jordan.
Yeah. I don't know who spoiled it. I think it was either Hannah or Levi who spoiled it. But number 3, Brave New World, Iron Maiden. Their best album from the 2000s. I would agree on that. Their most, well, I wouldn't say the most progressive. That goes to Seven Son of a Seven Son. But it's a close second because you got songs like Blood Brothers, Ghost of a Navigator, The Wicker Man. I mean, that song Wicker Man alone is probably one of my favorite Maiden songs that I think I'd put it in my honorable mentions when we did the Maiden album list. Don't remember. And also, it was the return of both Bruce Dickinson and Andrew Smith that became now the 6th piece we have right now. Murray, Smith, Gers, Bruce,
Steve Harris and Nico McBrain.
I don't know why I'm blanking out. And I have the Maiden shirt. Wow.
That's okay.
And then, like I said, the most proggiest, second proggiest to Seven Son of a Seven Son. I mean, that album is probably my top 5, like in the top 5 Maiden songs of all time. I will say something to Artur just to piss him off. I actually liked In A Matter of Life and Death. I actually like that album. Because, here's the thing. I prefer Dance of Death, probably, in my opinion, like the worst Maiden album in Dance of Death, next to probably The X Factor, Virtual Live, and maybe those 2 albums. But Dance of Death, I had like 1 or 2 songs that I liked. But like I said, Matter of Life and Death, I like that album a lot better than I do Dance of Death. Which I know Archer's gonna kill me in a bit.
Oh boy, Dylan.
What word are we on right now?
3.
Okay, we're on 3. Chase.
3.
Alright, my number 3. The band's been mentioned. But my number 3, I picked Shogun by Trivium. I really like the production on this album. Ascendancy is obviously really good too, and I was kind of torn between the 2. But the opening track is really good. Like, just it goes through a couple of different movements, it feels like, and then like that's the entire album pretty much all the way. Once again, like a big. What I've noticed in like my list, there's been the closing track has been like a over 10-minute long, nearly 10-minute long epic every single. And I guess that kind of thing just leaves an impact on your mind. Like, maybe even if the middle portions of the album drag out a little bit, if that closer is strong, like, you're going to remember that album more than, like, maybe one that's better in the middle. But yeah, my number 3 is.
Scott?
I believe, Levi, you mentions, and this is a band I, once again, have a long history with. I mean, very, very important in my life. The 80s was consistent with these guys and into the 90s, but around the mid-90s, 2000s, they kind of went what the fuck kind of direction, if you ask me. Especially when they're using garbage cans for their drums. But in 2008, we got Death Magnetic.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, my struggling. Yeah. Because, when I was hearing about this album coming out and we're hearing like, oh, Metallica's going back to their roots. It's going to be heavy again. We're like, yeah, sure, whatever. We've heard this. And a buddy of mine picked it up. He's like, dude, they're back. You got to grab the album. Get it. Okay. Grabbed him like, holy shit, they did it. They actually remembered who they are and put out some of the most solid work they had done in a decade. So, from start to finish, That Was Just Your Life to My Apocalypse.
The Day That Never Comes.
All the way through.
Yeah. Unforgiven 3.
Suicide Redemption. I can listen to that over and not get tired of it. It just, everything in the album, The Day That Never Comes, Unforgiven 3, Judas Kiss. Solid stuff all around. So, had to put it in my top 3, definitely, for 2000s.
I mean, my thing with Death Magnetic, it would have made my list had there been one fix with the album. If the production wasn't overly distorted and loud.
And that's the thing. I never heard that.
I thought you were going to say Lars's drumming.
Mine sounded clean.
No, Lars's drumming was actually pretty solid on that album.
On this one, you remember, like I said, he put the garbage can away.
Magnetic that it is on Saint Anger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the production was a little bit cleaner, yes, that would have made my list for sure. Hannah, you're number 3.
My number 3 is this. Somewhere Along the Highway by
Cult of Luna.
Cult of Luna, one of my favorite bands ever. Great post-metal band out of Sweden. And the thing is, in the 2000s, a lot of great post-metal albums were released. For example, just to mention it, Panopticon by ISIS is an awesome album. But my personal favorite is Somewhere Along the Highway. I mean, it's a long album with a running time, with over an hour running time. But, I mean, it captivated me when I listened to it for the first time. I mean, from a great start in Marching to the Heartbeats to an awesome finish in Dark City Deadman, I think no moment on this album is wasted. The songwriting is great. The songs are very progressive. I think my favorite 2 tracks on this album are Finland, which is simply epic and dim. A song that starts out as an insuspicious instrumental and then it progresses till at like a minute till the end the vocals kick in at some point, and I think the vocals by Johannes Petersen on this album are mighty, and the lyrics dealing with male loneliness are very unique for a metal setting. I enjoy this album very much. It's my favorite Cult of Luna album. I think it's awesome. Great album, great band. Yeah.
Well, while we're on you, Hannah, let's start with you for number 2, which I spoiled, I know.
Yes, you did. And it's Primordial to the Nameless Dead. One of the all-time great. Primordial has never released a bad album. Every bit of music they've released is precious to me, but the most precious is To the Nameless Dead, consisting of mostly first and second tracks while recording it. I mean, you cannot deny that this album sounds fresh and raw, and it's so captivating. Alan Averill's vocals have to be one of the best vocals within metal. The way he sings, sometimes I think like he sounds like a strangled cat, but still it's so fucking awesome, especially in a live setting. I mean, Alan never disappoints. He always goes 100% and beyond. And on this album, he just takes it a step further in combination with the perfect songwriting. all of my favorite Primordial songs are on here, like Empire Falls, Gallows Hymns, Failure's Burden, As Rome Burns, Heathen's Ride, Traitor's Gate, and so on. I mean, it's so fucking awesome, this album. And, I mean, we talked about doing
My number one.
we talked about doing a Primordial top 10 song list. A lot of the songs out of this album will appear on this list. I think it's divine, and I ramble about it. I think Artur will ramble more, so I'm shutting up now.
And
Now it's
just like Scott mentioned, that you should see War live. Here's a recommendation from Hannah and myself, since we had the chance.
Uh-oh.
yeah.
You should
Well,
definitely see them live. I mean, he was standing in front of me. I was headbanging, and suddenly I felt this hand on my head. And I mean, I was looking up, and he was like 10 centimeters away from me and singing. And it was like, what is going on?
didn't you
During
didn't you get the set list?
Yeah, I've got the set list.
Yeah.
I mean, he was singing as Rome Burns, I think, and he was like 10 centimeters away from me. I still can't believe that happened. I mean, they played in a very small club. It was so fucking awesome. One of the greatest live bands I have ever seen, alongside with Rotting Christ, Ministry, Rammstein. I mean, see them if you get the chance to do so.
Well, guess it's my turn to talk about the Nameless Day. This album has a special place to my heart because I remember it. The first dry run that we ever did, it was had Artur and myself. They recommended me to listen to the Nameless. After that dry run, that's what I did, and holy mother of God!
Yes.
I swear to God, I never thought something that, I don't know, could touch my heart very, I'm trying to think of words. I love this album so much. Like Hannah said, Gallows Hymn, Traitor's Gate, to the, all of it, everything. It's a masterpiece from top to bottom. And I do believe that Primordial should be bigger than they are right now. Yeah, they're big right now, but I think they should become more bigger, more like a Rotting Christ level, or even Borknagar, or even Watain level, or Borknagar level. People need to listen to this album more.
They're still on Metal Blade, so I don't know why they're not that big.
Which is a weird thing.
I appreciate it. I enjoy them playing small clubs. I think it's better for them.
Yeah. And I will tell you this. The minute Primordial announced a US tour, I don't care where in Texas, I am gonna go see them because I want to experience Alan singing Gallows Hymn. I want to experience that for myself.
I agree.
Hail Primordial. Hail to the Nameless Death.
Although be careful, because they, so far, of all the shows that I've went, they don't sing.
Well, even if they don't sing it, I'm still gonna go see them.
They don't sing the Gallows Hymn.
Like I said, even if they don't sing, I'm still gonna go see Primordial. It's a must.
Already so many awesome songs, so some of them will be there.
Well, my number 2, the band has been brought up. The album, not as much, and that is Mastodon Crack the Sky. I mean, one of the best prog albums of the decade, and good way to close the decade out with the album of the year in my mind for 2009. I mean, when you start off with such a melodic tune like Oblivion with all three of them, Brent, Troy, and Braun all singing, it's wonderful. Divinations having that banjo intro, which was like, what the hell? Before it just gets into typical Mastodon stuff. The Czar, probably my favorite song off the album. And even a couple of tracks that are considered not so good to some people for some reason, I think are phenomenal. Quintessence and Ghost of Corellia. I think those are great tracks. The title track and the 13-minute closer, The Last Baron. I mean, yeah, they went a little mainstreamy with the Hunter, but I love the Hunter personally. Now they're kind of back to their prog roots a little bit, and I look forward to hearing what they got coming out soon. Because Mastodon have definitely been a band since the 2000s flying the flag of hope for metal, for sure. Raphael.
Well, it's already been mentioned. System of a Down, Toxic City. I mean, come on. System of a Down is a band that hasn't made an album in a while, and I'm waiting for him to make an album already again.
15 years.
Yeah. And
which is crazy to think.
Being Chop Suey. Wake up. Wanted you.
I mean, it's not that I dislike System of a Down. I do like. One of my peeves that I have with System of a Down is because of System of a Down themselves. It's because of a club that I went here, unfortunately, last year, late last year. One of the songs that always passed two in this case, Chop Suey and always Toxicity. I mean, I was burned. I could not hear that song anymore. To dislike System of a Down, which other song played, I'll go.
That being said, my number 2 is also System of a Down, Toxicity. Because, like, I'm turning 23 this month, and it's been, like, over half my life that I've been listening to this album, and, like, I still love it. I still can put it on and just listen to it. Even some of the weird ones, like X or Shimmy. Like, I know everyone knows Chop Suey and Aerials, and like even me, I would listen to Aerials right now if I wasn't in this chat. Yeah, it's been the soundtrack of my adolescence, I'd say, and yeah, and just like the significance, and like I can criticize it too, like the oh my god, I can't talk. The instrumentation, it's pretty basic. It's not a very technical. On the guitar side, I'd say I actually enjoy the bass more personally, but it's just great. I can't say anything else.
It says it all.
And not to mention, the song Aerials is so big that even Amon Amarth covered it. Which is really strange to think. But hey, they made it work.
Mm-hmm.
Has
Artur, you're
a
number
story
2.
in its.
Uh-oh.
Artur?
Artur.
Artur?
Ah, okay.
There.
Sorry. This.
Man.
My
Oh,
number
technical
2
difficulties.
already has been said by all.
Ah!
He's gone.
No!
He can't catch that break.
Anticipation is killing me.
I know. Why does this cause
We're
delay
right
have to happen?
there. We're right there.
Let's hear it.
God damn it! I'll just put on mic just for the moment. I'll turn on the camera in a moment. But
Okay.
my number 2 has already been spoiled by everyone. It's Iron Maiden's Brave New World.
Okay.
I mean, and as Ricky said that one of his favorite, I don't know who said it, that one of his favorite songs was Blood Brothers. but or The Wicker Man. But my favorite song out of all that album is basically Ghost of the Navigators, and the reason why is especially the story that he tells. When he starts, I have sailed to many lands, now I make my final journey. I think about my people. I think about the Portuguese nation, who some 600 years ago, we were discoverers, we were navigators, and if you're a history, if you can check, we were one of the oldest navies in the world, so we were already navigators before the Spanish or any other nation was able to it. And Ghost of the Navigators just transports me to that era. All those galleons, the galleons as well, navigating to those lands. It's a bit like, dare I say, a continuation to Rime of the Ancient Mariner in a way. So, a different version. Basically a different version of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but with a whole story behind it. And that's why it's my number 2.
Scott, you're number 2.
Well, continuing the thread and theme of bands that have a lot of influence on my life. There's another band that does, especially when it comes to death metal and improving on my musician, bass player, and so forth. These guys are right up on there with that because their bass player is one of the greatest bass players in metal, especially in death metal. I mentioned these guys in my honorable Cannibal Corpse Evisceration Play. And with this one, the songs are incredible from start to finish, from Priest of Sodom to Secured from Ear to Eye. Not one bad song in the album. Production's top notch. This is their second run with Eric Rutan and Mana Recording in Florida. And what's important to think about as when you're an artist is always looking to improve. And a lot of times when you're starting out, you're looking at the big picture of what it is you're trying to create. As you go through life and you start to experience more things, you start to really not worry about the big picture, but fine-tune the little details that go in between all the other big stuff. And that's what they did with this album as opposed to Kill. And Kill is good, but I think they worked out all little kinds of production details, a lot smoother, a lot more finite, and put together Evisceration Plague to make it a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of death metal, in my opinion. Every song, like I said, is great. Big influence on me is Alex Webb's bass player, and showcasing his songwriting ability definitely with this album. So, got to put it up there as one of my faves.
If I might share just a little something with Scott, Alex Webster. Last year at a festival, I saw 6 Feet Under, and they still have both Jack Owen and Chris Barnes on the bench, and they performed Hammer Smashed Face. Jack Owen did Alex Webster's part, and I was thinking, this doesn't sound the same without the bass.
Right.
It felt so weird listening Jack Owen doing Webster's part, but the point of Alex Webster's bass skills.
Speaking of that, I did see Cannibal Corpse live, and they also played Hammer Smash Face, but obviously with their George Corpse Grinder. Origin.
Well, all right, real quick, I'll throw the story in there. I thought about quick. I played in a band back in 1995 to 96, and Cannibal was coming to my area. They were playing at a local venue, and I started hammering the booking agent of that building about getting my band on the show, and we got on. So I could say I got to open one time for Cannibal Corpse.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Lucky bastard.
This was 96, the Vile Tour, so it was the first tour with George, and George is awesome, and all the guys were great in the band.
And what was the name of your band?
Band name was called Internal Crisis. Just a small local band that we were just doing at the time. Honestly, we had no business on the show because we were greener and goose shit. So, but like I said, I just hammered the booking agent. We got on there. It was only me or my band, one other local band, and Skinless, and then Cannibal Corpse.
Ooh, Skinless. Nice.
Yep. Good memories, good times.
Well, now we are finally at the end of our road, number 1 time. And I figured, Scott, let's begin with you.
I love playing cards. You know why? Because I always end up with a pair of kings. That being said, number 1 album for me in the 2000s, King Diamond's The Puppet Master.
Wow.
Damn.
Let me tell you a little bit about myself. King is my all-time favorite. Okay, started with him in '91, I want to say. First introduced to King by listening to the Conspiracy album from a buddy of mine I was in school with, and just listened to everything he's done. Throughout his entire career. Went to the back catalog, of course, of Merciful Fate. I've gotten to see King live twice, Merciful Fate live twice. I've shook hands with the man, so that was a dream come true right there. And solid work throughout the 80s, into the 90s, some good stuff at the beginning, mid to late 90s and 2000. It's there, but it's like he's kind of like still trying to find footing, changing up some stuff and not really there. But 2003, Puppet Master hits everything perfectly. Production, songs, the story is visceral, brutal, gory, everything you want in horror metal. And he gets his voice so strong on this album. It's better than House of God. Give Me Your Soul, Please. I mean, it is what it is. But Puppet Master is a perfect album, and something I've been kind of noticing, and everyone is talking about.
We're still waiting for the Institute to open.
Oh yes, we are. Bated breath. We're still waiting. King, we're not doing much these days. We wouldn't mind.
Come on.
So what I've been hearing a lot of people talk about too on this when we're discussing these albums is really what becomes. A friend of mine told me this, and I think it's very true. Music becomes a theater of the mind, and you can sit down, listen to a song, and the imagery in your head starts to be created, and you can create better imagery in your mind than maybe some producer can with a music video. And with Puppet Master or any King Diamond album, you get free reign to do that. You get full range to create whatever imagery you want to with these songs. And I remember buying the album. It came with a DVD of him telling the story of the album, which you can now see on YouTube, of course, in its entirety. That was something I wish he could have done, like with every album he did. And of course, he always wanted to do a movie based on one of his albums. I know he tried to do it, but it never came to fruition, but it is what it is. So Puppet Master, again, just the imagery it creates, the story it tells, the vocalization from King, the guitar playing from Andy LaRocque, the song writing, everything about the album for me. When Levi said best songs of 2000, best albums of 2000, this was the one that kicked in my head first for me personally. So there you have it. All hail to the King.
Imagine
Ricky.
an entire movie about Abigail. Imagine a movie about Abigail.
And not Abigail 2, just the first one. We're good.
Yeah, just Abigail.
Ricky.
For the billionth time and one, I have to talk about the mantle. We've talked about this album all the time here in this show. That's how much it has impacted us. The first time I listened to the mantle was around 2015. I had 30 minutes before heading to work, and I was on YouTube, and this playlist came out of long black metal songs, and then in a shower companion came up, and I just remember listening to the album, and I'm like, holy mother of God, what is this? Especially the line when it says what was it? God is not dead, in a black metal song, which is kind of like I mentioned before, oil and water, the mixed together. But not just that. I mean, and then I started to do some more research on the band, and after, fortunately, they broke up, I think around 2013, 2014, around there. And this album is a hybrid album. It's just Yeah, around there. It's a hybrid. Folk, black, progressive, you name it. Everything in this album is pure perfection. And like I said, when I listened to this album, I didn't know it came out in like '02, '04, something around there. I actually thought it was a newer release because how much the music has not really aged. It has stayed the way it is. Because if you listen to it right now, it's still impactful today. Because look at what we're doing right, the impact of the world right now. If you listen to this album, it hell describes where we are right now. Especially on cold days and rainy days, I just like to put it on this album. And I don't know, it makes me feel want to walk in snow. Which is kind of weird, and we don't get that much snow here. So, like I said, I'm gonna start rambling about Agalog the Mantle, Hill Agalog, Hill the Mantle. Hannah, I know you got a lot to say.
Well, my number one is the Mantle as well. Oddly, the first time I ever listened to Agalog, I listened to their phenomenal EP, The White, a purely acoustic EP, and then sometime later down the road, I listened to The Mantle the first time, and I simply cannot describe what it is listening to this album. It feels like you're somewhere out in the wild, surrounded by nature, like caught in a snowstorm. Just this kind of feelings this album evokes is just phenomenal. I mean, I could ramble about this album for hours on end because it's simply, in my opinion, like Ricky said, it's well ahead of its time. I mean, it was released in 2002, but it sounds so much younger, and that alone speaks volume. It's progressive, it's doomy, it's folky, it's dark, has its light moment. The lyrics are so deep. It incorporates Native American poetry on songs like "And the Great Cold Death of the Earth," and then you have this epic song "In the Shadow of Our Pale Companion," which is simply a monolith of a song in itself. I was lucky enough to catch them live before they disbanded. Live, it was an experience in itself, especially Don Anderson, the guitarist. The energy he puts in the live shows and also in the songwriting is simply phenomenal. I mean, for me, the 2000s was the musical peak of Agalog, not only with Mantle, but also The White, an awesome EP, and then Ashes Against the Grain, which is almost on the same level as the Mantle, which is simply phenomenal in itself. I mean, to almost top the Mantle with another album speaks volumes of the musical brilliance of Agalog. I love them to death. I love this album to death. I mean, if I would move to a lonely island and I only could take one album, it would be the Mantle.
Agalog, if you listen to this, please come back. I will pay good money to see you live. Please.
I mean, Don Anderson during a live show last year, he said that he and John Holm are on friendly terms again. But I mean, will they ever regroup? I mean, since both Kuroda and Pilorian have disbanded, maybe, but I highly doubt that.
A man can dream.
Yeah. Artur.
Anything anymore? The Irish bastards of Cordial are fun. So, to this death, it is a perfect. I would say that Spirit Earth of Flame, it is as well. But I mean, Empire, Gallows Hymn, Heathen Tribes, Traitors Gate, No Nation for this. I don't need to say it. Although not all of my top 10 primordials will come from this, but at least a good quarter will come.
Mine as well.
2007, Primordial. No, to the name.
Raphael.
My number one is gonna have to be 18 Visions. Subtitle album. And what people don't know, 18 Visions started as metalcore, then they switched to rock. Now they came back to metal. But some people will argue Avenged Sevenfold was the first one to change from metal to rock. I believe 18 Visions started at first. Way before Avenged Sevenfold decided to do that with City of Evil.
Dylan.
Well, my number one just so happens to be Black and Blue by Backstreet Boys. Now, it may not be their best album, but it's one of the
Brutal.
Honorable mention.
Black and Blue.
Let me do the Levi.
Nice job, Joker.
I don't know.
You all think he's joking, don't you?
Exactly.
That's
The real punchline is that I'm serious. It's already been made. So, my number one was Blackwater Park by Opeth. And I mean, the Leper Affinity, like, that puts it on this list alone. Like, they could have played, like, xylophone chords for another hour on this album, and I still would put it on just for the Leper Affinity. But, like, that's the thing, is that level of musicianship and composition and just orchestration in general, that's carried through the entire thing from start to finish. It's so good. I love it. If I could film, I limited myself to one artist, at one album per artist on this list. Otherwise, I probably would have just filled this with Opeth. But what you can do, Blackwater Park is.
Here's probably a theme for a future episode: Top 10 Opeth with Dylan.
Yeah. There
I
you
will
go.
gladly join.
Well, yep, my number one is Blackwater Park. I could have tied it with Ghost Reveries as well. Oh, Artur.
Meh.
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 Alright. But, yeah, I could have tied it with Ghost Reveries because I do love that album too. But I went with Blackwater Park because it's their masterpiece. And it was the album that kind of put them on the map. I mean, yeah, Leper Affinity to start off, so strong. And I love how the song ends with that piano dirge that Steven Wilson does at the end. Bleak, you hear a little bit of a harmonizing duet with Michael and Steven, which is really, really cool. Harvest, one of their softest songs that they've ever done. Drapery Falls, one of their best. Dirge for November, very dark, depressing song. Funeral Portrait, kind of following that veneer. Patterns in the Ivy, a solid instrumental, leading into the monolithic title track, where things really took a turn for the better. I mean, 12-minute masterwork for Opeth. Michael's death growl, there's a reason why I put him top 3 on my top 10 death metal vocalist list, because he just has such a vicious, visceral snarl to him that if he sang for a band like Cannibal Corpse or something, it wouldn't feel out of place, because he's just that brutal with his death growl. But at the same time, the soothness of his clean vocals really helps out a lot. And yeah, the musicianship, top notch. I mean, after all, this was only the second album with the quote classic lineup of Michael Ackerfeld, Peter Lindgren on guitar, Martin Lopez, the great Martin Lopez on drums, and Martin Mendez on bass. And First time they worked with Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree, and a beautiful friendship blossomed from that point onwards between Michael and Steven, to the point where 2012, I believe, they made Storm Corrosion, the collaboration, the long-awaited collaboration with the two. And yeah, and they're both still going strong with different material to this day. Opeth's still going well. Even Martin Axelrod's still with Bloodbath on drums. And I mean, Blackwater Park, I've talked about this album so many times in the past. It's like I'm like a broken record at this point. But that is my number one, and what else can you say? And ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this. Wow, the longest episode, nearly 3 hours. Holy crap. But it was amazing. So thank you guys who were watching the premiere stream. Thank you guys for watching, or in archives. Next episode, I actually forgot what it is.
Instrumentals.
Yes, that's going to be a hard one to make.
I agree. Well, my probably about the Litica, I'm assuming. Maybe. Yeah.
But with that said, thanks to everybody who joined the special Horsemen podcast Shadow Cold crossover special that we called it. Because, yeah, thanks to Dylan and Scott for joining in. Hope to have you guys on sometime soon. And yeah, we still got a lot in the tank as far as ideas. So yeah, next time you see us for episode, top 10 instrumentals. Now the big question is, where would everyone put a Metallica instrumental? We'll find out when we get to it. So, thank you guys for watching Horns High, and we'll see you very soon.
Henry just says she's becoming more proud of you by
Oh my god.
On goal! I finally made that work. I finally made it work.
Oh, I see what you did. Oh, so you have to tilt up and
nothing but net in that one.
No!
Come on, get him. Where's the ball? Where's the ball?
Finally!
Oh, we make our way to overtime, boys. But it's so stupid.
What the fuck?
What is it doing? Look at that!
Oh shit.
Yep, I definitely regret it.
Yes!
Rumble.
Nah, I don't really feel like it. I do. Let us have it!